Hello and welcome to another episode of Oh So Curious Times DCU Daily. And on today's show, we're going to talk about, of course, is it Glicked, Gladiator times Wicked? You know, which one won out the box office weekend? We're also talking about James Gunn and Peacemaker Season 2. Of course, they just wrapped up, so we're going to discuss that in the DC Daily portion of the show. And then we also have to look ahead to Moana. Moana 2 specifically, which could be the biggest movie of the year. Those are the rumors and the expectations. But to do that and so much more, of course, we're going to have a full show right ahead for you. And with that, let's get the ball rolling. All right, I'm back, and today joining me on the show, because I don't want to be here by myself talking to you guys. I've got with me we've got a big panel today, by the way. So I'll start with Liz. How are you doing today? You are on mute.
I'm doing great. Sorry about that.
That's awesome. That's perfect. That's perfect. All right. Well, not only do we have Liz on the show today, of course, as always, we've got John with us today as well. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. I'm giving I know Hugo likes me staring into the camera. So if you're watching Hugo, I'm giving you what you want. I'm giving the people what they want. So,
Yep,
I'm doing good.
That was a big hit last time. I'm sure he or she or it will appreciate it, whatever their pronouns are. But also joining us on the show today, we've got Angelina. How are you doing today?
Oh, she's also
you are also muted. This is a pattern now.
Angelina, you're muted.
Okay, we did that on. Yeah, it was because I was laughing at John. I'm sorry. I was like, what is happening right now? I've clearly missed a whole lot since last time I was on the show. Is that Fiona behind you, Dan? Who is that?
Yeah. You mean the artwork? Yes.
Oh, no, there's a.
That. Yes, that is Fiona right there.
That's so cute. She's with us, even in the show.
She is. Her work is there. Her work is up there. And, she's right there. And then fuck the penguin. And on that note, as always, we like to start the show with the news. So let's hit it. It doesn't seem to matter what I do. I'm always the number two.
All right, Mr. I need to paint my abs on to get nominated. You don't see Robert Downey doing that.
You're kidding. You're kidding. I can't open the envelope without the...
Warner Brothers is heading back into the Matrix with a new movie in the works.
Wonder what other surprises are in store.
I want to be Bruce Wayne.
I like that. And you're gonna love me.
There's the shot right there. That.
Okay, we don't need to see
right there.
You look ridiculous.
Well, not no more, he don't.
What, dude? I can barely understand you. Your accent's insane.
What the...
Give me a hand up. Nope, I'm actually okay. Thank you very much. Oh, wow. Wow.
All right. Well, we're gonna get into the news today, and we have lots to talk about. I feel like weird about this organization. I feel like if anything, the guy should be down here and the lady should be up there. There we go. That feels better.
Knows his place.
That feels better.
I'm kidding.
What is this femdom crap we're getting into? Jesus Christ. Is this like a kink or something of yours?
No, John. I just felt that was disrespectful. So
Dan just knows what's up. He's a gentleman.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
I'm not. I don't give a fuck.
I think we already know that, John. But with that in mind, let's move on to talking about a few gentlemen and ladies at the movies. Of course, we have Wicked and Gladiator 2 in theaters this weekend. It's meant to be the new Barbenheimer, Glicked, Wickiator or Gladict, whatever you want to call it.
Who is calling it Gladict? Please.
I am. That's one of my two picks. I thought it was amusing.
Hasn't it been dubbed Glicked? Glicked, right?
Glicked. That's the I mean,
official.
I just found this graphic, which I thought was pretty clever, floating down from Barbie Land into the wonderful land of Oz. It's sort of
It's like the opening to
encapsulates.
Dragula. Sounds like.
But it's okay. So the first story we want to deal with today is the box office numbers. Of course, at the time of recording, these are the numbers. These numbers will change when the actuals come out on Monday morning, and then of course from there we'll get the final numbers as the week progresses. So right now, we have a pretty good idea of where the movies stand. And so far it looks like on just opening weekend alone, Wicked is doing really, really well. Wicked is off to a huge start, and Gladiator 2 is, you were correct. You were absolutely correct. I mean, Gladiator 2 isn't doing half bad for itself at all. Like combined, they've made like 205 million pretty much. That's the estimate. I imagine that number might even be a little lower than what it actually comes out to be. But when you scroll down a little bit in this article, it shows you there that Wicked opened to about 114 million, and then Gladiator 2 has done around 55.5 million. Now, again, these numbers could go up a little bit because I imagine they will tick up based on when we talk about the movies themselves and review them later. You will talk about how many people were actually in your theaters, and I think based on how many people are actually going to the movies to see these films, it's likely that the actual numbers will be higher. With that in mind, though, of course, you could tell that Gladiator 2 made like half the money of Wicked, which was expected. The other thing I wanted to kind of quickly bring up before I bring you guys in the conversation is Gladiator 2 released in pretty much every international market minus China and the USA. So basically the two biggest markets, China and the US, they released this weekend alongside Wicked. Everywhere else, they put the movie out the week before. So Gladiator had a head start, which is why when you read this headline, it's a little confusing because Wicked is getting off to 164 million plus for the entire global opening, which is a great number. Now, but for Gladiator 2, they're off to 221 million, but it says their second offshore frame because they already have a ton of money coming in from the first weekend when they weren't playing in the US and China. So yes, it does look like when you look at the global numbers that Gladiator 2 is ahead, but it's because it's got a 7-day head start in a lot of the markets. But 164 million plus is one of the biggest openings of the year worldwide for any movie. So we will later in the show talk about all the different records that Wicked has already broken, including a ton of records for musicals.
Globally a week early.
So they do this for a lot of movies because it's just a matter of what the local markets are like. Because, for example, there's, in other countries, there might be local movies that might be big, that might be coming out in certain weeks. It's also, from a studio's perspective, they want to spread things out sometimes a little bit. I'll give you another example of this. I think both Dune movies, the first one, Dune 1 and Dune, was it part 1 or part 2? Basically, both Dune movies, they had a staggered release schedule. So I know that the first one came out around the pandemic era, but they released it internationally a week or two before it got to the US. And the second one, they did the same. And one of the other reasons why they do it is because it builds up the word of mouth. So like all of a sudden you're getting all these fan reactions before you get into like the big market of the USA and China. And so people from the rest of the world are telling everybody in the US and China, like, hey, go see it. It is amazing. And that can like further push those numbers higher. So from a marketing standpoint, it helps, but it's also like a strategic thing. Not every movie does it. So like Wicked did a day and date everywhere. So like you wouldn't have been able to go see it a week early pretty much anywhere. You would have had to wait until this weekend. But it's just interesting. That's more the business of Hollywood side of things. But now I want to start off with your opinions on this. Angelina, what do you think about the movies? Of course, they're both doing really well for themselves, but what are your thoughts on the success of Wicked and Gladiator 2?
I mean, overall, we're talking almost Barbenheimer level cast and crew. Obviously, you don't have Christopher Nolan, but Ridley Scott is incredible. And then you have Wicked, which is just, one of the most beloved musicals of all time. It was one of the very first musicals that I ever saw. So getting to see such a high quality production that was so much time and love was put into, and to see all the devotion from the cast, like I feel like I've seen so much press about it. Every single one of those cast members in Wicked really, really like dove in. And I think that that's a really exceptional thing to see from people like pop stars like Ariana Grande. I find that very impressive that she just sort of whipped back into Broadway shape, which is incredible. She hasn't done a musical since she was in 13. So I think it's really exceptional. I'm excited to see it. I haven't yet gotten to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it's doing fantastic. And of course, the two leads are absolutely amazing in their roles. Liz, I want to get your take on this. Which of the two movies impressed you the most in terms of the box office numbers themselves? Obviously, Wicked made twice as much money domestically in the North American market, but Gladiators, again, already made over 200 million worldwide. So they're both doing really well for themselves. What are your thoughts on the box office?
I mean, they both performed exactly how I expected them to. Like I said, domestically, I knew Wicked was going to blow Gladiator out of the water, and they're going to continue to do so now that we've got the holiday weekends coming up. I think people are. I don't expect it to leave the theaters for quite some time. It'll probably be in theaters until the end of the year. And I just, I saw both on the same day. Both theaters were packed. So I expect those numbers to rise for sure. And it was a cool weekend, and it was cool to see people going to the movies again. So I think we can expect a much bigger number after the Thanksgiving holiday, to be sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just great to see again just a success. Like 205 million together is a big number, right? I mean, I know we're getting into the holiday season, so there tend to be big movies like the Avatar movies all come out this time of year. Whenever there's a Star Wars movie on the calendar, in the Disney era at least, they try to release it in the Christmas holiday season. And I know this is Thanksgiving week coming up, so it's a good time to put out a movie where the whole family can go see it. Now, with that in mind, John, I want to get your take on this. Of course, are you impressed by how well Gladiator 2 is doing? Because in terms of reviews and reception, it's considerably as far it's not like it's rotten on the tomato meter, but the critics weren't as kind to it as, of course, they absolutely love and praise Wicked.
Yeah.
But I just want to get your take on where the box office numbers stand, and then what do you think about it? The differences, how one is making a lot more money than the other, and yet both are very successful.
I mean, Wicked, we all kind of knew that was going to be a huge hit. I just didn't expect that the reviews would be this unanimously positive. But it's definitely I love how we are getting kind of this new Barbenheimer. I didn't expect anything from Gladiator either, because that was okay, this looks could maybe be a fun movie. It's a retread of the first one kind of thing. But and we'll get to that later, but it's Gladiator 2 was a shock. Wicked in terms of the reviews were shocking. Gladiator, for me at least, Gladiator 2 for the money was shocking. Both are kind of neck and neck a little bit. Yeah, I understand the week plus that Gladiator 2 got, but even then it's definitely an exciting time. When I went yesterday or 2 days ago, sorry, I went. It was just pre-COVID numbers. It was crazy, and at the end of the day, I don't care what movie makes money. I really don't, because if people are going to the theater like this again, it's just kind of a win-win-win situation. The people win, the theaters win, and the movies win, because it's the theaters, no matter what, I'm happy that the theaters are making money again. They're after a bit of a drought after Deadpool and Wolverine, we just got absolute greatness in terms of theater, because the theaters are such a dying culture, and we, as someone who doesn't want the theater culture to die, it's great that we're getting these numbers again, and it's just really nice to see. And I'm happy that all the theater nerds are happy with Wicked, and I'm happy that all of the men are happy with Gladiator 2, because they can get their Roman Empire fantasies out there on the big screen once again. But it's an exciting time. I'm really happy, I'm happy that I haven't seen Wicked yet, but I'm happy that two supposedly great, well, I can confirm one's great, two supposedly great movies are like getting a lot of love. So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Well, and
Yeah.
I think it's interesting too because the films are so different, just like Barbie and Oppenheimer,
Right.
whereas, you know, one was based on a completely true story, a very well-known situation back in history, and the other one was just based on a beloved toy, and we really didn't know what to expect from the script. We didn't know what the film was going to be about. Same thing with this one, whereas this was Gladiator was a highly anticipated sequel to a movie shot almost 20 years ago. Still not really sure how so not really sure how they were going to make the connection and bring it back to the first one. And then same thing with Wicked. It's a beloved story that theater goers, book readers are very well aware of. But you know, you come in with a lot of anticipation of how are they going to do these characters justice? Are they going to add stuff? Are they going to do things that piss fans off? Even though it was marketed to death, as I've talked about before, they were just such completely different films that it's almost hard to compare them. But as far as box office numbers, these numbers are not a surprise to me in the slightest. If anything, I'm surprised that Gladiator is so much lower domestically. But again, those will definitely go up throughout the week as we continue on.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the numbers speak for themselves, and I just wanted to kind of quickly draw a comparison here between, again, people are trying to compare it, like, you know, to Barbenheimer. If you went to the movie theaters and saw one or both and were into the whole Glickit thing, then I know the studios would love to see that. I don't know if they're trying to make it happen necessarily, but that's, you know, certainly been the social media conversation around this movie weekend. And to that end, when you look at the combined number between Wicked and Gladiator 2, you're looking at basically $205 million. Now, if you compare that number to, sorry, Liz, I didn't mean to put you on screen there. If you compare the $205 million from Glicked to the actual Barbenheimer was still a lot more money, but not by like a terribly huge amount. When you look at it, Oppenheimer made 82.4. 162, which is huge. 162 is a big number for Barbie, and we have to remember both of those came out in the summer months, right? Like it wasn't like they came out in Thanksgiving time. So the time of the year
it was
matters.
also like the tail end of COVID too. Like people were so weary about going to sold out showings.
No, absolutely. But I mean, there's a big difference in box office potential when two movies of that scale come out in July versus they come out in November. I know we've been talking about how it's a great time of the year for families to go to the movies because a lot of kids are off from school and, you know, parents want something to do with their kids, or if you just want to, you know, go on a date night or stuff, like it just makes sense. It's not, these aren't movies that you can't go see, you know, if whatever age you are, like you'll hopefully enjoy them.
Mm-hmm.
So when you do the math on the number for Barbenheimer, I think that's what, like 244.4 million versus 205. So I did want to quickly just ask for comparison's sake, since of course we had the graphic up earlier, you know, 205 versus 244, 245, let's round up a little bit. That's not a huge difference. I feel like that $40 million difference is pretty much the difference in box office potential, you know, from the summer months versus, you know, the holiday season. Because we're not exactly at Christmas yet. We're still a month away. So it's, you know, the peak holiday season is, you know, Christmas week, the week before Christmas. So I think that difference is, I mean, I'm quite frankly blown away and surprised at how high the Glicked numbers came in and how close they are to Barbenheimer, right? Like, Angelina, what do you think?
It doesn't feel like the same sort of like excitement. Like, I feel like there was a lot of apprehension about these movies. Like, is Wicked gonna be good? Like, do we believe in this director? Do we believe in this like cast? What are we doing? And then there was a lot of apprehension about Gladiator 2 too. Like, I know my boyfriend was really excited about it, and like his friends are really excited about it. But then I talked to a lot of people that were like, dude, the last movie came out 24 years ago. And how the fuck are they going to make it like a sequel to a movie that came out 24 years ago? And they had tried to make a sequel multiple times in those 24 years, and it fell through each time. So it's like, did I love this cast so much? Yes, but like, did I have apprehension about how it was going to actually come across? Whereas I feel like everyone was so excited and just knew that like Oppenheimer was going to be phenomenal. I called it. I was like, he's going to win an Oscar. Like, this is it. Yeah. And then we felt the same way about Barbie. like walking into it before it even came out, we were like, these are the Oscar contenders. And I don't feel like people were talking about these movies the same way. Does that make sense? So I am actually surprised that the movies did as well.
That's fair.
I mean,
like, I feel like
yeah. No, I agree with you there. I'm still bummed that Ryan Gosling did not get his Oscar. I mean, he got the nomination, but Ken definitely deserved to walk away with the trophy. Hence why
He's
we use
more
that
than
clip
Kenough.
in the intro for the news. He is Kenough. He's more than, you're right, John.
he
I
is
agree.
more
More
than Kenough.
He's more than
He'll
Kenough.
always be
Absolutely.
more than Kenough.
More than Kenough.
But to be fair, RDJ deserved that shit. Like that's.
Yes, that's true. That's true. You know, it's hard. That's the thing. It happens almost every year, right? Like you have 5 or so nominees in each category, and there's always more than one deserving winner. And so you know, it's kind of hard. Like it's difficult. Like we're at that level of the game where it's, you know, like there's so many good teams in terms of like a sports context, or so many good players that, you know, only one can win. So like they don't give out runner-up trophies. So it is what it is. But of course, it's great to see that Glicked has almost matched the levels of Barbenheimer, because people were really wondering, is this overhyped? Is it going to get there? Like the advertising, you know, the studios were trying to make it happen. They didn't quite hit that high, but they got pretty close. And fuck the Penguin. Now, speaking of course, the movies out in theaters right now, we did, and this is a bit more of a somber story, so we're going to change gears a little bit. And there is a movie out in theaters now. It's actually not in wide release, but it just had its world premiere. And there's so much that surrounded this film over the last couple of years. And finally, now that people are getting to see it, we're starting to, like, you know, they're starting to unpack what Rust actually is as a film. And it seems like it's just a movie that will forever be tied to what happened behind the camera, more so than what happened in front of the camera. But, you know, now the filmmakers and the family of Helena Hutchins, who unfortunately passed away on set due to the controversy with the Gunn, it's a situation where, I mean, a movie of this scale, like, otherwise you would barely hear about it. It's a bigger deal, it seems like, for the wrong reasons. I mean, they use words like controversial, you know, sensitive, stuff like that. But Liz, you brought this story to the table, so I'm going to start with you on this one. What is your take on, again, just the world premiere? There was a Q&A session after that, and you see that in the headline there, you know, that is a terrible question. It's in relation to a question that was asked about how much of the film that we get to see in the end was shot by the late Helena Hutchins versus how much was shot by the cinematographer that they brought in to finish the movie. Because if you remember, the movie wasn't done when that shooting happened on set. And so they needed to bring in somebody else to kind of like help take the movie across the finish line after Helena Hutchins' family decided that they gave their blessing that, you know, let's go and finish this project. That's what she would have wanted. What are your thoughts on this again, Liz? It's hard to talk about, but, you know, we'll do our best to tackle it.
Yeah, well, I'm really torn, to be perfectly honest. When I first heard that they were going to go ahead and finish it and release it, I was like, "Whoa, really?" Especially with all the controversy surrounding it. We know that Alec Baldwin has since been cleared, and he's no longer going to be on trial for his role in the situation. But to me, it just feels kind of icky. And I understand, you know, her husband came on as the producer after the fact. He was very vocal in the last bit when they were wrapping up and completing everything. The woman who actually took over the role of cinematographer actually auditioned initially for it and was like second runner up for the job anyway. So it's not as though they just pulled an unknown. This is somebody that already kind of understood the tone of the film and what they were looking for. But now the family has come out, her family has come out. I shouldn't say, obviously not her husband, but her family members have come out. I think the real issue is they don't have an understanding of how the media works and how promotions work. So they feel like bringing this film to festivals is kind of exploitive, when in fact they're just trying to, you know, just like you would for any film, trying to get some buzz about it, trying to get some interest in it, trying to get different production companies to help them market it and get it on streaming eventually and that kind of thing. But right now, you know, just from the family's comments, I can understand where they're coming from, but at the same time, it's like, but you gave them the go ahead after the fact, and now you just kind of have to accept that this is what's going on. You know, I always go back to The Crow. all the fans flocked to the film in tribute of Brandon Lee, whereas the family kind of said, no, you can release this as a tribute to Helena. But, you know, if you're not in the business, you don't know who this person is. So I don't see that fans are going to be going to see her work. If anything, they're just going to be going because this movie's been so controversial and it has been in the news for the past year, you know, just to see if it's any good. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't know what cinematographers do either. So that's a big, you know, a big part of it as well. But I'm mixed on it, to be perfectly honest. I mean, of course I'm going to see it, but I'm going to feel uncomfortable pretty much the entire time.
I think that's how most people are going to be, because it's just so like awkward. And as you said, like Brandon Lee was kind of he was the face of the movie. He was the star, so it's easier to see. And he was also like established, so like people knew him.
Right.
People knew his dad, and so he was the star, he was the face. So like we know, like the general audience knows the actors. They don't know the cinematographers or the editors or anything like that. They don't know anything in regard to that. So it's like it's not. So it's definitely like a stranger thing, and yeah, it definitely feels like, because there's way too many cases of people being like okay with something, and then like a discernible amount of time passes, and then all of a sudden, in order to get their own controversy, like, oh, now I'm not okay with this.
Right.
So
Well,
'cause
there's
then
a processing period, right? They were kind of in a position of, well, yes, this was her last project. Let's let her legacy, you know, come to completion. And now that they've had time to sit with it, and again, kind of see how the media train works when promoting films, now they're uncomfortable, which is completely reasonable. I totally understand. And then same thing, you know, with Brandon Lee, that was actually his very last day of shooting with any weapons in the scene. I think he had like 2 weeks left to shoot. His wedding was like within that month, that time frame. So there was a whole lot of baggage and a whole lot of stuff going on with that. But again, his fiance, his family, they all said no. This film was going to put him on the map, and it did, unfortunately. But it is different in that regard. But this one, like I said, especially after the court case and all of the controversy and all the gaffes that Alec had made, particularly in interviews and things, it was one of those, like, I just really couldn't believe that they agreed to release it. I hope that final shot, I mean, for lack of a better term, is not in the film. I hope they went a different direction with that scene. In fact, the shot that you see in The Crow is the one that killed Brandon, which is wild, but it's the only one they had, for context. But there have been other projects where people have lost their lives, and and the production company chose to cancel. And you know, there's one famously from
I feel like this is one of those projects that was so sad. It's like the Brandon Lee thing. There weren't any processes in place at the time to avoid what happened. And that was supposed to be the last time that this ever happened.
Exactly.
And then this movie was pure negligence that led to someone dying on set. And it's just like, I just don't understand. Like the movie is what? We don't even know what the movie is. I don't give a fuck what the movie is. Like, somebody died trying to film it. It does feel icky to me.
Well, and not only that, somebody else was injured too. It's not like it was just some one-off thing. Like this affected multiple lives and multiple families. You know, famously, there was that film in 2014 with the actor John Hurt, I believe is his name, and somebody died at that. I mean, that wasn't due to, you know, a weapon negligence, but it was negligence on the production company's part and on the
John Hurt. What movie was that?
I forget what it's called now. It was an Allman Brothers biopic, and and they were shooting on a train track, which they were told they weren't allowed to shoot on. And unfortunately, here comes a train. It was a commercial train track, so it was very busy. And as they were trying to clear the set and try to clear the tracks and take all of their equipment with them, a woman unfortunately lost her life. And they chose not to continue on with the production. So again, you've got a couple of different opinions in there. You've got a bunch of different emotions going on. And again, like I said, with this one, like with The Crow, I don't know that there was any lawsuits going on, because like you said, Angelina, like that was the first time something like that had really happened. Whereas this, like, there's all kinds of lawsuits, and you would think just from a legal standpoint they shouldn't be able to release it because people are still in litigation. Like there's just, this is an ongoing story. So like I said, I'm surprised. I'll see it, but I'm also gonna feel icky about it.
Yeah.
I honestly don't think I'll go see it. I don't like,
and that's fair.
I feel like this is like and I just don't even know if it has anything to do with the story. Like at this point, I feel like they're just like finishing it in spite in a way. Like, well, we already spent this amount of money, so like let's just finish it. But it's like somebody died.
Right.
I don't see the point of it. It's a Western movie. It's not like we really need another one of those in our lives. Like I don't know. I don't get it. Like I don't feel like it's some sort of great story. I don't even know how it could possibly be a great tribute as a Western to someone who died trying to film it, but maybe it'll catch me by surprise. I don't know.
Well, I think the fact that the director was injured during the accident as well, I think he kind of feels like, well, if I'm okay with this, you know what I mean? Like, because I was also involved, I have a feeling that's part of it as well.
There was also somebody else that they got like bit by like a spider, right? Or something. Yeah, they got bit by like a spider, like a brown feral spider, and like he got hospitalized and he had to have like multiple surgeries so his arm wouldn't get amputated.
Oh, a brown recluse?
Yeah, that was it. That was it. I couldn't think of the name, but yeah. There was that as well. So kind of a cursed production, at least.
Yeah, kinda. For real. Somebody put bad juju on that production. That is crazy.
Alec Baldwin.
I mean, look, for me, this movie, like I mentioned earlier, it's a film that a lot of us wouldn't necessarily have gone to see because it's not a terribly huge budget production and it's not like a big studio thing. So,
but it's one of Alec's first ones in a while, aside from like Mission Impossible.
Mission Impossible.
I was looking forward to that. Yeah. And I just want to say it was a William Hurt film. It was not a John Hurt film. I just want to correct.
I was gonna say I was looking it up and
yeah, no, I apologize. I want to correct myself. But yeah, I thought it sounded interesting, but again, I only had heard about it because of the accident. So
yeah. Well, look, the movie is gonna get released. I don't know if they plan on doing a full theatrical release, like a wide release, or if it's gonna be a limited release. Let us know in the comments down below, guys, what you think about it. If you would go see it when it comes out, would you go look for it on streaming, or would you go buy it like on iTunes or like digital, or would you even maybe like collect it on DVD, like just or Blu-ray? It's just again, this is one of those movies where I'm like, even if they did like behind the scenes stuff, I'm like you, how much do you include and not include, right? Like you're walking a very fine line. So let us know in the comments what you think about the story. It's just every once in a while we have to talk about something that's not so positive necessarily. It's a ongoing situation that's evolving as we speak. So as new information becomes available, whether it's from the lawsuits or again, how they proceed with the release of the film, we will, keep up with it and we'll bring that to you on the show. But in the meantime, we do have a few more news topics to talk about. First, we got to get into Jon Watts doing an interview, and well, you may or may not have heard of this George Clooney and Brad Pitt movie. I'm not talking about the Ocean's movies. I'm talking about the movie that they just did recently in 2024 called Wolves, which was a movie that basically Jon Watts worked with Apple on. And then Apple gave him all the money in the world, like they do to every director and producer that knocks on their door, which is great. Apple has the money to spare. Why not? But basically, it was meant to go release in a movie theater. So like you could have gone, I think it was going to be like a wide release, like what Apple has done with other movies like Argyle, Napoleon, and I forget like their most recent release, but they've been trying to release a good chunk, maybe like 5-6 movies a year in theaters before they go to Apple TV Plus, and they've not had a ton of success. But for whatever reason, they decided that the one George Clooney Brad Pitt movie was the one that they were gonna put straight to streaming, and it looks like John Watt was not very impressed with that because that's not what he was necessarily promised. So I want to start with you here, John. I want to get your opinion on what John Watt said. He said Apple didn't cancel. I did because I no longer trusted them as a creative partner. We have seen this happen with Christopher Nolan and Warner Brothers, and now it looks like John Watts is walking away from Apple. What do you think?
The man worked with Disney for like what 5-6 years at Marvel. He's like, I'm not fucking dealing with this shit again. I'm not dealing with this. Screw you. I'm out of here. I'm not making the sequel for you. So go to hell. And good for him. Like it just goes to show no matter what industry you're in, because I know like there's the whole like retail revolt now with a lot of people that are like, if you're not going to pay me what I deserve, then you can go fuck yourself. So that's what it kind of, I know it's like majorly different because it's like people trying to survive. Meanwhile, he's a director who makes tons of money, but I'm just saying like it's a spectrum of things where it's just like, I know my worth as a director. I know when I've been fucked over, and he's like, you know what? I'm not going to deal with this. You have two huge stars in a really interesting movie, and you just throw it onto streaming.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can we talk about how that was the right decision? Because that movie was terrible.
Thank you.
Terrible. That movie was
so
bad. I was so excited to see them back in action, and I was like, this plot is slow. The lines are slow. It feels like they're trying to lean into the nostalgia of Ocean's 11 without actually making it there. Like, I was so confused how that movie even had the hype it did to begin with, because it was so bad. I gave up on George Clooney and Brad Pitt after that. Like, they have to earn back my trust.
I still want to watch it because John Watts is based. That's literally it. Like,
it was enjoyable, but it was 100% a straight to streaming film. It was not a blockbuster production. It was not something that needed a big premiere. It was not something. The problem is with Apple, they don't advertise their projects for shit, not at all, because they don't care. Those are an aside thing. They have iPhones. They don't need to advertise anything else. Like, they don't care. So that was part of the reason why it did so poorly, and they decided not to. But that's what they do. It's Apple. But I mean, it was like an Only Murders in the Building ripoff kind of move. That's really what it was. And I hated the protagonist in it. I liked George and Brad. If that was all the movie was, that'd be one thing. But then they had the stupid kid that kind of ruined the whole thing for me. So I not only do we not need a sequel from it, but like Angelina pointed out, it was a straight to streaming film from Jump Street. So too bad, so sad. I'm sorry.
I just also think that was the best move that Apple could have made, especially considering like Fly Me to the Moon, I feel like was a better quality film and a better quality.
That was absolutely a movie for the movie theaters. Yeah.
That fell flat in theaters. Why would this do well? Just because of the star power? Like, they don't have the star power they did 15 years ago. That's the other thing too, is like star power, I feel like doesn't matter as much anymore.
I think
it doesn't.
I'm
just saying.
Right.
Well, but let me make a counter argument to that. And I mostly agree with you. Like, if the quality of the movie is terrible, it feels like a straight to streaming movie. Why not put it on streaming? But
if you're promised one thing, I get it.
No, I get that. But still, like, you gotta admit, it's George fucking Clooney and Brad fucking Pitt. Like, it's two of the biggest movie stars of the past. It's more than that. But hold on, it's also more than that, right? When you put a movie in a movie theater first, and then people find out about it, like, regardless of how well they market it or not. And then to that end, I will also address the fact that Apple doesn't have their own distribution arm. So they partner with other movies, the big 6 movie studios, or big 5, or however many are left, whether it's Sony or whether it's Universal or Warner Brothers. They've literally, for like the last 4 movies, each one has been a different studio. So they want to treat every studio equally. It's not like they did one with Paramount and then like the other with Sony and went back to Paramount. So they've released, I think, 4 or 5 at this point with that new strategy, but they for some reason skipped this one. Now, I know star power doesn't matter as much today, and that's fair, but as far as things go, when you put George Clooney and Brad Pitt on the marquee together, that still has a bit of a draw. And then when you combine that with the fact that if the movie came out at the theater first, regardless of how well it was marketed or not, which would be the impetus of the studio, such as a Warner Brothers or a Universal, whichever one Apple would have partnered with, and them making money would depend on the box office receipts, so they would probably want to do a good job on it.
But I'm
then
telling you, they wouldn't have had any good box office numbers either. Because the number
but
one thing anybody asks me when I go to the theater is, should I wait for this to come out on streaming, or is it worth going out to the theaters? So it would
it's
kind of end up just like Joker Folie à Deux, where people are going to say, don't bother, don't leave the
that's
house for this one. Wait,
it's
like,
fair.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just
but
the way he talked about it as well is like he was promised a theatrical release.
Right, and
but
that's
didn't get
that
it.
I
it's
kind
the
That's the thing that's
expectation.
shady
that's what
about
I
it.
that's
Yeah.
what I get.
I
Yeah.
mean, the other thing also is even if it bombed at the box office, it would have made more money than it did by simply going straight to streaming. You know what I mean? And I know Apple, in their case, Apple does not need that extra $50 million or whatever it would have made. Apple is gonna do just fine without it, unlike a studio like Warner Brothers that is billions of dollars in debt, or even Disney. But having said that, I mean, like you said, John, going back to
Yeah.
John Watts' aspect of this article points out right at the very top that John Watts left the Spider-Man franchise to write and direct this movie. I remember back when the trilogy
Yeah.
ended with Tom Holland, with No Way Home, John Watts were like, yeah, I'm working on this other project, so I think I'm gonna go focus on that. And the Spider-Man thing was like they were taking a break before Spider-Man 4. Now they're up and running on Spider-Man 4, but of course John Watts couldn't be around for that because it sort of overlapped with his production schedule on this film. So you have to wonder. I mean, he might be feeling the weight of that as well, because the fourth Spider-Man movie is probably gonna kick off another trilogy, and I'm sure John Watts wants to do other projects. He's got other TV shows he's been working on. But it's the same thing that happened to Christopher Nolan, maybe not on as big of a scale, where Tenet was meant to get an exclusive theatrical release. Understandably so, at the peak of the pandemic, I get that Warner Brothers, what they did with that movie. I actually tend to be like, okay, what they did after that, when they decided every movie was going to be day and date, was terrible. But what they did with Tenet, putting it out on streaming so people can access it when movie theaters were closed for a lot of people, it made sense. So, but Christopher Nolan is an absolute purist. John Watts
Yeah.
isn't necessarily known as that, but still, from it's an expectation versus reality thing. I think Warner Brothers tried to make up for that with Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot by giving them a shit ton of money up front, because they knew Wonder Woman 1984 wasn't going to make a ton of money at the box office. I don't know what the thing here was, because if it went straight to streaming, I imagine everybody got paid up front, all the millions of dollars, and they weren't really going to get a lot of back end points. But it's just it's one less filmmaker that Apple can throw money at, I guess. Like he'll probably go back to Sony or Disney and work with them on his next film. And I think he already has a few projects, at least on the television side. So John Watts is going to be busy. Fly
But
Me
I
to the Moon, by the way, is
think
the other
that's
one.
like,
Yeah.
look, unless I was like big time contracted in, this is what's happening. Like, that's just kind of how the entertainment industry works. Like, you can't guarantee anything until it's out.
True.
Signed,
Yeah.
sealed,
Yeah.
delivered. Like,
And this
when
has
it's
become the
out-
age of streaming, so the fact that these things happen shouldn't be a surprise at this point
Yeah.
anyway.
And so it's like, okay, I'm sorry, you're so sad you gave up Spider-Man. Like, that was your choice. Like,
Yeah.
you chose to take a risk on this,
Yep.
and
man,
it is a risk.
The fucking
I'm like, when-
bootlicking in this stream is crazy.
I'm just saying, by the way, like when they probably pitched this to him, or I think this might have been like I forget if it was his passion project or not, but when you package a movie with George Clooney and Brad Pitt, I don't care if it's 2024, 2005, or 2035. Like, it's Brad Pitt and George Clooney, right? So you have those two actors, a script that you get to, basically write and direct. It's, and then you get as much money as you basically can ever
I don't know.
want.
I just don't agree with you. Like, I feel like you're still paying so much weight to two actors that haven't really done nearly as much in the last 10 years. And were they huge, like, 90s and early 2000s stars? Yeah. But like, I just don't, wow, y'all are mean to each other in the chat. My goodness. But I just don't see that has the same weight now. Like, in this day of, like, we've talked about this before. Like, I think the star, like, as in like the Hollywood starlets, like, I think that has died a little bit. I don't think that exists anymore. And so like, putting all of your weight into that to make a movie great is like, why? Like, Why would I do that?
True. But by the way, also one nugget of information we haven't addressed is Wolves became by far the most viewed feature film ever released on Apple TV+.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that too.
Yes, and that was from
So-
the star power that
I mean,
these two used to have.
Sure, that's something, but
taken
it's not like they're cranking out movies left and right either.
No, I
So
get it.
I don't
I
put a
mean-
lot of weight in that either, honestly.
But you want to bet that that new Oceans movie they're now definitely working on is that when that comes out, that it's gonna have a big opening weekend, and if it's good, it's
Of
I
course
bet
it
you
will.
that's
Everybody
gonna
loves
make a
those
lot of money.
movies. Of course it
Yeah.
will.
Well, not
just
Ocean's
saying-
12. Yeah. I've heard
Well-
Ocean's 12 was very bad.
Ocean's 12 is okay. It's not
It's
as good as
alright.
Ocean's 11. It's definitely not as
Right,
good as
it's
11,
alright.
but it's all right.
13
I
was
wouldn't say
alright
it's
too, yeah.
bad. Like I definitely think the franchise peaked with the first movie, so it's been downhill from there. But maybe 14 will do better. But we gotta pivot on from the. Actually, again, sorry, Liz, I don't know why it keeps doing this. I'm trying to get to my screen here. Here we go. Look at my pretty face. Now we gotta talk about. Speaking of my pretty face and Crazy Rich Asians. Let's talk about Crazy Rich Asians. There's a sequel that they're working on. See the pivot there? Because crazy.
Perfect.
Never mind.
We got it. We got it.
Thank you. John M. Chu has said that I won't bring everyone back unless it's worth it. Now we know they've been trying to get this off the ground, but what are your thoughts on?
I will
the
tell
update?
you that this title is misleading because essentially what he says is we've been working on a script since the first one and we are basing it off of the second and third book. But what people don't understand was that the first movie was not a direct adaptation of the book, and we haven't found a formula that works. And I'm not going to even entertain filming another movie until we have a script that the storyline works. So essentially what he's saying is like the sequel is not happening anytime soon, people. Like, we'll let you know.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, when you look at what he said there, he's like, I want the best thing. I want it to be worthy of what Crazy Rich Asians 1 was. We have tried all different versions. It's hard because people think the first movie is like the book, but it actually is not. It's the right spirit, but the plotting is very different, and so you can't just go and translate. And we have tried versions, and the fact is that we just haven't gone there. So, I mean, John, are you a fan of this franchise? I mean, it's one movie so far. I don't know if you want to call it a franchise, but have you been looking forward to the second movie? What do you think about what John M. Chu had to say?
I don't really give a fuck. I had no desire to see the first one. I still don't. I don't think John M. Chu is that good of a director, and I don't care for any of his movies. I'm only seeing Wicked because I'm reviewing it with my friends, and that's it. So,
Fair enough. Liz, what are your thoughts on this? Did you have a good time with Crazy Rich Asians, and then are you looking forward to the
Yeah.
sequel?
Yeah, I saw it twice in theaters, and then I watched it another time on an airplane flying somewhere one time. I knew that it wasn't a perfect adaptation of the first book, but I did know that each book after was based on separate characters. So the headline didn't surprise me at all because it's like, well, yeah, why would you insert characters that weren't a part of the second book or the third book? But just like Angelina said, if what he's really saying is we haven't made a decision one way or the other.
Right.
I know when Crazy Rich Asian first came out, that's what they had said. They said we're going to make a film on each of the following books, but it's been a couple years now, and I don't know that even if they tried to get everybody back, they'd be available at this point. That everyone has a lot of other things going on, especially oh my God, I just draw a blank on her name. Michelle Yeoh, now that she's in the Wicked franchise, so she's got a lot going on herself. So, I'll see it. I loved the first one. I really enjoyed it. So we'll see what happens. I know regardless, like, just like he said, what matters to him is that it's right, and that it makes sense. So as much as I loved the first one, I'm assuming they're going to try and put the same love and care into the second and possibly third film. So I can wait. It's fine.
No, I mean, that's fair completely. And then he goes on to say there, that to me, the sequel right now is that Broadway musical, which we have heard about this, I think, a few months ago. So they have been working on a Broadway musical, which is meant to sort of follow up on the movie. So John M. Chu saying, yeah, that sequel right now is that musical, and that they're working on. And it's very exciting and very fun. So even if you don't end up getting a sequel movie, you can still go watch the musical and have fun with it. What are you sending me, John? Yeah. Okay, that's great, John. Thank you. You can share that if you want. But we'll get to that when we get to MCU weeklies. But speaking of Crazy Rich Asians, from one to the other, thank you, John M. Chu, for. Yeah, never mind. That is just factually inaccurate. But that brings us to the end of the news segment. And I'm sure there's more news to cover, but those are the ones that we picked out because, of course, there's so much going on in the world of Hollywood. We talked about the John Watts story because he doesn't want to work with the richest company in the world anymore. Good for you, John. We talked about John M. Chu. Well, a lot of Johns today. Crazy Rich
Although
Asians.
they spell it wrong, so they're not real Johns. So like,
true, that's fair. That's fair. Well, with that said, guys, let us know in the comments what you think about Glicked making almost as much money as Barbenheimer. What do you think about the Rust premiere? Is that a movie that you would be interested in watching whether it comes to a movie theater near you or whether it releases straight to digital or Blu-ray? What are your thoughts on John M. Chu and Crazy Rich Asians and doing a sequel, like trying to get it right and making it as good as the first one was? And then of course, what are your thoughts on Wolves? Did you get to see it? Were you looking forward to a potential sequel? It's not happening, it looks like, at least not with John Watts involved. So let us know in the comments and hit that like button if you haven't already. We are now going to move on to doing the movie reviews with our movie of the week. And the first of the two, because we have two movies this week. The first one, of course, is the Icked part of the Glicked. So we're going to start with Wicked.
How can you hire an actor that does their own stunts, amazing acting, sings, and then can integrate all three of those things together and land it over and over and over and over again?
I wanted to make it as tied to reality as possible so that I meant it. If you have to find me, I'm up here.
Well, Cynthia Erivo, Ariana Grande, the whole cast of the movie is up there in terms of the quality of the film, and the audiences love it, the critics love it. The question is, were people singing in your theater when you went to see the movie? Now, with me to review the film, I've got Angelina and Liz. Liz, you went and saw the movie. Angelina, you have seen the theatrical play, but you haven't yet had a chance to go see the movie in the theater. So I wanted to just kind of ask.
Also,
first,
the
Angelina,
musical. It's not a play, guys. It's a musical.
Musical. I apologize. It's a musical.
Very important.
Speaking of the musical, Angelina, are you looking forward to seeing the movie now, having seen the reactions and all the stuff from the movie theater? I'm sure you've been on social and people talking about how the movie was when they went to see it.
I mean, they did absolutely market this movie. I think Liz had talked about this. They market this movie to death, but that is so fair because it is one of the most renowned musicals ever. I actually went to college where Kristen Chenoweth graduated. That I looked up to Kristen Chenoweth. I thought she was incredible. I went to Oklahoma City University. So when we grew up, really looking up to these musical Broadway stars, she was one of the utmost. Obviously, Idina Menzel. I grew up singing Rent. I loved the first musical. It was one of the very first musicals I ever saw. I think it was one of the first ever musicals that I ever chose to go see. And it is such a beautiful story. It was definitely one of the first musicals that ever made me cry. I mean, the story is so beautiful and it's so universal and it tells a different story. And it also shows you that what one side of the story may seem black or white. I think this messaging behind the story is so much love and realizing that there's so much gray area that can be manipulated. And I think this story is so beautiful. So I'm super excited. I was actually super torn between going to see Gladiator and Wicked yesterday, but I knew I probably couldn't drag my boyfriend to go see Wicked. So I'm going to go see that on my own.
That's fair. That's fair. Now, Liz, you of course did go see the movie. So I want to get your take on this. Were people singing in your theater? And then what did you think about the movie?
No, thankfully, I saw it in AMC theaters, Dolby. Thankfully, AMC was really good about asking people to please be respectful in the theaters, as a lot of the other theaters were, Regal, Cinemark, those of those natures. And so thankfully they did not. I went with a friend who is a diehard Wicked fan. She literally wore a Wicked 2-piece set that she had purchased. She's about this film. But the number one question she had had, and I'm not trying to spoil anything, the number one question that she had was, okay, well, part one, which is the first half of the play, the musical, was only 90 minutes. How is it that the part one movie was 2.5? And the answer to that is they've combined the book and the musical. And quite frankly, from what I've been hearing from fans and people who have read it and seen it, they've done so seamlessly. And one nice thing that all of the fans have said was they did not add any songs. There are no new songs. This is pure to the musical. This is absolutely all of the original songs that everyone knows and loves. So again, the resistance to sing along was great. People had a really hard time not singing along, but everyone really, really loved it. I was surprised actually because there were some very obvious cameos in the film, which were obvious to me. Again, not really having this background with the musical or the book, but still really surprised fans, which was kind of interesting. They were, oh my God, but it was great. Again, Cynthia Erivo, Ariana Grande. The thing that kills me the most about all of this is everyone's like shocked that Ariana Grande was good, and it's like, but she has an acting background. We all know she's a
I
great
think
vocalist.
so many people
I mean, she did Victorious. I'm just saying.
forget.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
You guys know how she got famous, right?
Right. She was on Nickelodeon, right? Like that's
No.
no.
She was in the original 13 musical on Broadway. She was the opening cast on Broadway for 13 the musical. And they brought on like 2 or 3 of those people from 13 the musical into the Victorious cast.
I see. Okay.
So I think she did that with Elizabeth Gillies, who has gone on to do like a bunch of other stuff, but they're best friends.
Yeah.
So a lot of the Victorious cast actually came from 13 the musical. And Ariana Grande grew up a theater kid. She grew up in Orlando, Florida. Like Nickelodeon was like a sure thing. They were filming in Orlando for the majority of my childhood.
Yeah.
So I just think so many people have like really put her in her box. So that's also why I wasn't so shocked about this. Do I think, listening to the soundtrack, do I think that had she not been singing so much pop music for so many years, she would have been a little bit better as far as like vowel shapes and stuff? Yeah, I do. But that's something that my teachers always really argued with me about. It's like if you come from a classical or musical theater background, you're taught to sing a different way. And so every time you sing like in pop style music with like these overstretched vowels and sort of like people call it like singing with a font, it actually takes away from the overall like vowel shapes that your muscles have learned to create doing like musicals and stuff like that. So I was listening to the soundtrack yesterday and I was like, okay, like some of it is a little like, but I feel like getting to see the movie, it'll tie in way better.
Yeah.
Like I think if you're such a solid actor, it'll be seamless.
Well, and they claim that all of the singing in the film was live. It wasn't a track that was played over and edited and synced up. I don't know how soundtracks work as far as, did they record separately for the soundtrack or was it taken straight from the film footage? That I'm not
Generally,
sure.
they will, even for real musicals, they'll separate them. So they won't take it from live recording.
So again, just the fact that, I mean, when you see it, and Ariana's hitting notes that we haven't heard her hit before, at least not me, because like I said, I don't know about her past productions and projects that she's been a part of. But she actually has come out and said a couple of times in the press that she's pretty much decided she's missed the theater so much that she's going to be retiring from the music business and she just wants to be on Broadway for the rest of her life. So something really interesting has come out of this film, if that's really what she plans on doing. But again, if you are a Wicked fan, if you are even remotely interested in the story, if you've not seen the play like myself, if you've not read the book like myself, I highly recommend it. I think everybody should go see it. It's really well done, and they ended in a good spot. They essentially, again, they're true to the musical from what I've been told. They ended in the right area, so it's not like you don't feel like all of a sudden the movie just stops and that somehow like the story kind of gets cut off. It could be its own movie in itself, essentially standalone, because again, we all do kind of know the story. We know the story of the Wicked Witch of the West. We understand, the Land of Oz. So it could be a one-off film if you have no backstory as far as the musical and the book is concerned. But we are getting a part 2 around the same time next year, and I'm looking forward to it. And I knew I would be. It was just they tortured me with the marketing for 12 months, and they're going to do it again. And I have to accept that, and that's okay. But I know for a fact anyone who gives a flying frig about Wicked is going to be pleased with this film. So like I said, that's why I'm not surprised by the box office numbers at all.
Did you
If
guys
anything,
see
they're a
it?
little
And
low.
I should have sent this to you guys, but there was like this viral meme video like making fun of them for all the PR, and it was like this girl playing Glinda.
Yeah,
and it was funny
I
because
know
I
what you're
actually
talking
went to
about.
college with the girl who's doing this meme video. Like she went to OCU too, but she's like crawling into the Elphaba's like lap, like all over her, and it's like kind of funny because I feel like in this PR stuff, like they are kind of over, like
Yeah.
very friendly. That it's like
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, there's also a great TikTok that the same thing where somebody's just asking like a really basic like boilerplate interview
Yeah.
question, and the girl in the video like immediately starts crying and is like, thank you so much for that question. I will cherish it. And you don't understand this project. Like it was just so funny. And again, like I said last week, I'm so thrilled that they've become best friends out of this, and that they stand each other and they lift each other up. It's all wonderful, but good God, I just, as much as I loved the film, I need a break.
But you know what
break.
though? When I remember vaguely, because I do remember, I think Wicked's like farewell, when the original cast sort of retired from actually doing the show, Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth did this like interview along with a performance on Good Morning America. And I remember it very distinctly because it was one of those things that I like grew up watching. But I feel like their relationship was pretty similar to Ariana Grande's.
Yes, and it still is, yeah.
I think half of it is the story. Like realistically, they had to have really good dynamic energy and chemistry because the story is really about their friendship more than anything else.
Yeah.
Like that's it. You know what I mean? So it makes sense to me that they have created such a strong bond.
Yeah.
I actually didn't.
And it's like an us against the world kind of relationship.
Yeah. And I didn't really know much about Cynthia Erivo before, so it was kind of nice getting to know her through the press for this.
Yeah. Well, I knew her from the handful of movies she had done prior, and I just really, really like her as an actress. I knew she had an incredible voice, but this has just catapulted her. And unfortunately, I don't know that we're going to see her in a lot of films. She does prefer Broadway. She does prefer being on stage in front of a live audience. So I don't know that we're going to get much more from her, especially after something like this. I have a feeling she's going to be getting Tonys after Tonys after Tonys for the rest of her life, which is good for her.
Yeah.
But again, like I said, the real surprising thing for me was for Ariana, for her to say, how much she really loved it, and now she's going to be pursuing Broadway full time. So that's pretty neat.
Yeah, I love that.
Oh,
Dan,
you're
you're
on mute, Dan, my dear.
I'm good. I figured it out. I was
Said
gonna
hello.
say, yeah, we've all made that mistake at least once on this show today.
Look,
Maybe
today is
not
just one of
John.
those days.
Not
the last.
He'll get there. But hey, look, the audiences love it. 97% is really, really high, especially with over 10,000, ratings
like I said,
there.
from what I've been told, they stayed
yeah.
absolutely true to both the book and the play. They have combined them both beautifully. And again, I think fans were honestly really pleased that there wasn't any new songs added, because this is what they wanted. They wanted the musical on screen, and that's what they got.
Yeah, and then because Angelina hasn't seen the movie yet, we're not gonna give away what some of the cameos are because.
Oh no, I'm not. No, I would never.
Yeah,
I would never.
I'm so excited to see it. I have to go see it soon.
But I will. So you didn't read the book though?
No,
Angelina?
so I never read the book. I knew
there
a
are
little bit about the story, and then I knew about obviously I saw the musical. So like.
So I will say there are talking animals in the Land of Oz, and one of them is a very well-known actor that I've not seen do a lick of press for this film. Granted, I'm not looking for it, but I was very, very surprised to hear their voice and be like, wait a minute, I had no idea you were a part of this. So there are a couple things thrown in there that might surprise some people.
Yeah. I mean, not only that, but there's the whole thing about we were having a conversation on this before the show. This movie has been advertised as Wicked, just Wicked, but when you go to see the movie in the theater, at the very beginning when the movie title comes up, it says Wicked Part 1, which I think was very clever on their part from a marketing standpoint, because when you think about it, like the only movie series that has ever really done well where they did like part 1 and 2 was the first one that did it, which was Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows part 1, and they decided to split that book in half. Now, of course, those books are so dense that there's enough in there. I still think they could have done it in one movie, but like people went to see both movies and they both made $1 billion, part 1 and 2. But when it comes down to it, most movies since, including the Twilight Saga, and then I don't even think there was another young adult one that didn't even get to finish as part 2 because the part 1 was so badly received that they kind of killed it. But it's rare that even Mission Impossible recently, Dead Reckoning part 1, now it's Dead Reckoning and then the Final Reckoning. So I think it was really clever on their part to just call it simply Wicked. And now when you go to see this movie in the theater, you get to see it's part 1. And then, obviously at that point you're in the movie theater, so you're going to watch it.
But again, the
have a
fans
great
knew.
time.
The fans knew the whole time. And
I know.
in interviews, they've been very open and honest about
Yeah.
it. They haven't, it's not like they've shied away from it. They're not trying to keep it a
Right.
secret. And
Well,
again, we all
it's
know
true.
the second one's coming out the exact same time next year as well.
Right, but here's the thing. There's a lot of, the vast majority of the people are not going to be the super fans who read all that and knew all those details. To them, this versus Dune Part 1 or Dune Part 2, I think this was a good decision. I'm just complimenting the marketing team and like the studio for making a good decision there, because now people will go to see it, they'll love it, and then they will go to see the next one because they know if there's a Part 1, there must be a Part 2.
Don't compliment them. I've been tortured for 12 months. Don't compliment them.
Well, before we move on from Wicked for the day, I did want to get into all the records already been breaking at the box office because it's just crazy. We talked about it earlier in the show. It got off to close to $120 million at the domestic box office and well over 160, almost $170 million at the global box office in its opening weekend, which is amazing. I think it's broken pretty much every record there is for for musicals. I still think what was the name? The Bohemian Rhapsody is like the one that's still like at the top of the list for a lot of those records, but like now Wicked is climbing up that list. So
and let's not forget awards season. I don't see that it's going to be the movie of the year, but it is going to sweep a lot of awards for sure.
It is. But before we finish up, a couple of the records here. Biggest global and domestic opening for a movie based on a Broadway show. Now that's like a very specific thing, but again, there's comparisons like Disney's Into the Woods and of course Les Miserables from 2012. So both of those movies, Les Miserables opened to 103 million, but Wicked of course beat it out with 114 million. And then of course the global number too.
It's going to be all over. When Phantom comes out, that'll be a wrap on that. People are chomping for Phantom.
Yep. And of course, it's the biggest opening for Ariana Grande. It's the biggest opening for a pop star, which makes sense. Harry Styles, Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga hasn't had a great year at the movies. Biggest opening for Cynthia Erivo, which she's not a big movie star anyway, so that makes sense. So those are easy ones. It's the biggest opening for John M. Chu, and John M. Chu is somebody who's worked with like big franchises before. Now, granted, G.I. Joe Retaliation wasn't the best movie in the world, even though it had Bruce Willis, Dwayne Johnson, and Channing Tatum in it. But it's still a great start for John M. Chu as a director, and we've been talking about him earlier, and he's working on Crazy Rich Asians and doing a Broadway musical that's a sequel to that film. Then you have, of course, the biggest opening for the producers. You've got the biggest opening for a non-sequel film in 2024. Because here's the thing, up until this weekend, literally all of the highest grossing, I think it was like the top 5 or top 10 highest grossing movies and certainly the biggest opening weekends of the year were all sequels. And Liz and I, you and I have been had multiple conversations over the last few weeks about how next year's schedule is full of sequels. There's 4 of this, there's a Rush Hour 4, there's another Mission Impossible 8.
It's not a sequel, it's like a continuation of the story.
Continuation, right?
Yeah.
This is a movie that is a non-sequel. It is an adaptation, but it's a non-sequel and is the biggest opening of the year for a non-sequel.
I definitely have a feeling it's going to win for best adapted screenplay or most original screenplay, just because again of the way that they perfectly merged the book and the musical. It'll be really interesting to see what awards they're going to get for sure.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And then biggest first day for a movie based on a Broadway musical. That's, again, now we're getting into some very specific stuff. But when you look at, again, the 5th biggest domestic opening for a musical feature ever, of course, it's behind The Lion King, which made $1.5 billion, and The Beauty and the Beast, which also made like almost 200 million on the opening weekend, and then Barbie. But those are all big movies. For Wicked to be in the same conversation is great. It is great. And then the other one I wanted to quickly point out is the third biggest opening weekend of the domestic box office for 2024 at the time of the post. Of course, that could change because we've got Moana 2, Mufasa the Lion King. There's still a couple of big ones yet to come out this year. But as of right now, as of this weekend when we're doing the show, the only movies that are ahead of Wicked are Deadpool and Wolverine, which made 211.4 million, which I think only Moana 2 can maybe chase down. And then Inside Out 2.
They haven't been advertising it well. They've not advertised Mufasa well at all. They've not advertised Moana 2 at all. I've barely seen anything on.
I am worried about Moana 2. We will get into that later.
Well, yeah.
Later,
now that we're getting closer to the release date, yes, we're seeing some more things, but truly, I'd be interested to see if those numbers come close, to be perfectly honest. Even though I know it is the holiday season, it's the school break season. I don't know if it's going to do any better because remember, Wicked will still be in theaters at the time as well. So we'll see.
I mean, literally the second weekend for these two movies, Gladiator 2 and Wicked, is going to be Moana 2. Could be the biggest movie of the year. So let's see how that affects both Wicked and Gladiator 2. Now, speaking of Gladiator 2, of course, we're going to talk about that movie next. But before we do that, let us know in the comments what you think about Wicked. Did you go to see it? Were people singing obnoxiously loud at your movie theater? Or did Jeff Goldblum come up on the screen before the movie started and it was like, just don't do it. Like, be quiet. And, nicely and not so nicely told you to shut the fuck up and just watch the movie and enjoy and have a good time. Let us know in the comments what you thought about Wicked, and if you haven't seen it, like Angelina, who's gonna go see it, is your level of excitement going up now that you're seeing how much money it's making, and of course how well all the critics are reviewing it, and even the audiences, 97%, it's almost perfect. Hit that like button, of course, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell if you are new on the channel. Now we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on to our second movie of the week, of course, the Gla part of the Gladict, or is it Glickid? No, the Gl part of Glickid, I think we're talking about. So Gladiator 2 is a movie that, of course, is like 20 some odd years in the making. They finally figured it out. And did Ridley Scott get it right? He hasn't gotten much right of late, but let's see what he did with the Gladiator 2. The real question is, were you not entertained? Or were you? I don't know. I guess that's the question we are here to answer, because there's a lot of crazy moments in this movie, some that just don't feel very historically accurate at all, others which feel very, much in line with the first movie. So there's a lot to like about this film. It's certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, the last I checked. We've got a pretty good audience score as well, and the movie's making plenty of money. It got an early release pretty much in most parts of the world, a week early, and now it's also released in the US and China. So we got to talk about it. We of course want to know your opinion, so if you're in the chat, drop your comments down below. Did you go to see Gladiator 2? Are you into the Roman Empire? Did you enjoy Denzel Washington, Paul Mescal, and Pedro Pascal, and just everybody else? The cast for this movie was stacked. Now, I personally have not seen the movie yet, so I'm going to step away and I'm going to let Angelina take over, and we've got John and Liz, all three of them. It looks like they went to see Gladiator 2, so they're going to give you their review, and then I'll be back on the next segment. So Angelina, I'll let you take over. What did you think about Gladiator 2?
So Gladiator was one of my mother's favorite movies, so I grew up watching the movie. She was obsessed with Russell Crowe, and I was just like, okay, yeah, for sure. I do think this movie has one of the most incredible casts probably since Oppenheimer. I have been screaming and raving about Paul Mescal since he was in Normal People. It's one of the best shows of all time. I knew he was going to be a phenomenal actor after that. I knew both of them had a long career in front of them, so I was super excited to see him headlining this. Obviously, we love America's Daddy, Pedro Pascal. We even have the kid from Stranger Things. I always forget his name, but he's incredible. So this is truly just like an incredible cast, an incredible revival of a long-term name. Both of you guys went to go see the movie too. John, let's start with you. I know you're normally a hater, so are we leaning more towards love or hate on this one?
I was genuinely surprised by this movie. As I was saying before, I didn't really expect a ton. I expected kind of like a little bit of like a schlocky retread of the first movie, and I just did not expect a ton. But then I come in, and the first like 20-30 minutes were like, okay, this is kind of samey, but then it completely diverges, and it's just one of it's a movie that's worthy of it is a movie that is worthy of being a sequel to the original, because I thought it was genuinely great. It's not perfect and it's not as good as the first one, but I will say the cast was phenomenal. Paul Mescal, I knew the name. I have not watched Normal People, Angelino, I'm sorry, but I knew the name, and he's definitely, I saw his filmography. I'm like, this guy is definitely going to be like a big star, and this was like the first real like big thing he's done. And I feel like after this, with the whole like Glicked craze, he's going to be another big star. And I'm happy about that because he's a good actor. I thought he had a lot of range here. I thought he did such a good job, especially dealing with so many other actors like around him that like could have dwarfed him. Like, Pascal, Nielsen,
He really held his
Washington.
own. He did a great
And
job.
he
right?
held his own. He held his own. Yeah, and then Dan is in the chat in Fantastic. Yeah, Fantastic Four is going to be a Gladiator 2 reunion because both Pedro Pascal and Joseph Quinn are in it.
Okay.
So
do we think that Pedro Pascal helped get Joseph Quinn cast in Fantastic Four after working with him here?
maybe, but I think it was just like because
Serendipitous?
Marvel
I doubt it.
serendipitous maybe, but also there was like the Marvel thing there. It's they're more so for like teens and like young adults, and teens and young adults are very into Stranger Things, so it's entirely possible that I think Joseph Quinn was like a decent fan casting of Human Torch for a while too.
Yeah.
Him and like Rudy Pankow were like the biggest like fan
But I
castings.
do
So-
probably feel like Pedro Pascal was probably like, why don't you check out Joseph Quinn?
Well, wasn't he just in A Quiet Place Part 1 as well?
He
So
was.
like he's just hot right now. That's
Yeah.
great.
So he was amazing in that movie too. He was so good here. Unfortunately, he doesn't give like that's what a lot, and I was discussing this with friends of mine because it was like Pedro Pascal has kind of a smaller role and Joseph Quinn has a smaller role. It was one of those cases where I'm like, are they wasted or are they given enough a good amount of time for the story, and they were just so good that we wanted to see more of them. So that's like an interesting discussion to have, because it's like, okay, were they actually wasted, or were they just like, no, they would just serve the story, but like they were just amazing that I just wanted to see more of them. So, I would say the entire cast is good. The only one I didn't really care for was Fred Hetchinger, the guy who played the other emperor. I thought he was
my least favorite of the two.
He was not very good, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's been in other projects and a lot better, but what I was saying about Paul Mescal, what he could have been, that's what it was for Hetchinger, because like not only did he not give that great of a performance, but all the actors surrounding him were just better, and it really made his flaws more noticeable.
No, I do disagree with you here on this one, but I want to get to Liz. Liz, what were your initial thoughts about Gladiator 2?
So I saw the first Gladiator for the very first time 2 days prior to seeing this film, and I'm glad that I did, because it made me understand kind of the connection, how they were filling in the gaps there as to how they continued the story. And they say in the film, granted it was 24 years ago, but they say in the film it takes place 16 years after the first. I did not care for either of the Caesars, to be perfectly honest. I thought they were almost like caricatures. And I don't know that it was the actor's fault. I don't think they had the greatest lines. They were kind of written that way to be a little goofy and eccentric and just kind of aloof. But it was one of those where I was like, ugh, we're kind of overacting here. I didn't care for Denzel's character either. I think Denzel's kind of in a weird pocket where, yes, he's picking his projects, but he's acting each character almost exactly the same. Like he's being kind of like mafioso, I'm getting what's coming to me kind of tone. So I'm just in the theater the whole time like, all right, so you want to like take over the family. You know what I mean? It was just kind of weird seeing Denzel in that setting doing kind of the same character that we've been seeing from him as of late.
I don't have friends. I got family.
I mean, Dan, as much as I love that, I don't love it when you're cutting me off, but thanks. But so I liked it, but I was also kind of I didn't like it on an individual character basis is the way I can explain it the best. So but I understand why everyone's flocking to the theater. It's definitely a blockbuster film. It's definitely one that should be seen on IMAX, which is where I saw it, or in Dolby if you can possibly get one of those theaters going. So I definitely highly recommend it. Just again, just like John said, it did have a couple pieces there that was like, all right, you know, just whatever, you know, if you need to make that make sense for the story.
Right.
I definitely did buy, you know, the whole connection that he was actually Lucia's son, come back from exile. I didn't buy any of that. How he was Maximus's son after all. Okay.
So that's actually why I was happy I didn't see the first movie. I haven't seen it in years. So I was a little confused at that, and I just had to buy into it. But
well, so in the first film, they hint that Lucia was always in love with Maximus because they kind of grew up together and they were close family friends. But they in this one they were like, oh yeah, she took lovers, so they were romantically involved, and he's the thought like, okay, and it was just kind of one of those like thrown like one of those aside like,
I agree with
well,
that.
you can kind of connect the pieces from the little bit of information we gave you in the first film, and it was very weak, but you know, all right, okay.
Okay, so speaking about my experience on Gladiator 2, following these two, like your guys' ideas, I kind of want to play devil's advocate in a few spaces because I actually really liked the Caesar's performance because if you guys look at real Roman history, those people were fucking freaks. Like, excuse my language.
Exactly.
Like, they were
That's fair.
freaks.
That's fair.
Like, you're talking like the makeup they had going on. I was like, yes, that feels 100% historically accurate. One of the Caesars was interested in women. The other was interested in men. That's a huge part of Roman history. Then you have so many, I mean, the architecture was beautiful. The way they set up the shots was stunning.
No, 100%.
I bought into every ounce of the gaudiness because that was actually the fall of Rome. Like, they talk about it all day long. Like, they even hint like Rome is dying. And I wanted to look up today like the historical accuracy because I don't think Maximus's story is real. I don't know if he's actually tied to any historical figures, but I was a huge like Greek and Roman history nerd. Like, I used to just go to the library to research that shit, which is weird.
Well, yeah, so when's the last time you thought about the Roman Empire?
It's been a little bit,
like that's gonna get brought up again. Yeah,
and so it was really interesting to sort of see all of this different, and then you have Virgil, like you have the poetry that they're tying back into it, and I really bought into every ounce of the gaudiness, and I think it really helped the picture. So when it was also hilarious because they hinted that one of the Caesars had syphilis,
right?
And I was like, oh shit, I died, and I said it out loud, and Keith was like, oh my God, that's why he's acting so crazy. That's where Amadeus Mozart comes from. Like, they think that Mozart died from syphilis, and he was
but it makes sense for his character. So when they did explain that in the film, I was
I meant like what Dan was saying, like in terms of being historically
I was so
accurate.
interested in my own story.
Dan's hung up on the sharks in the Colosseum. Dan, let it go, dude.
Okay,
let it go.
I thought that
you
that
weren't
was
there.
really interesting. Do we actually know if at any point the Colosseum could be filled with water?
Well,
they could.
That was the whole point. It was built
the
to be the
aqueducts
ultimate
could stream into the
center.
Colosseum.
So, Yeah,
I didn't know
because
that.
things
I
like that,
wasn't
that was like the only way that people got any type of education and any type of culture, right? So
entertainment.
they're
Yeah.
seeing these animals from foreign lands that they never would have seen otherwise. So it's completely realistic to think that they could do that in the Coliseum. Dan, you need to let
Yeah.
it go.
Yeah. Well, the
I
sharks are a bit. Here's the thing about Gladiator, though. It was never historically accurate at
Right.
all.
Yeah.
It's just
Right.
historic fiction at best. All right.
Right.
It's not
But
this. We
people
never went to
are
see this.
applauding this movie for being more historically accurate to that time of the Romans versus the first movie.
Right. But
People are saying
even
that this
then,
one
I don't
did fall
think of that
into.
as much
Well,
as
also like
as
20
a
years, nobody was
negative
really
or
fact
a
checking.
positive.
Like 25 years ago, nobody gave a shit about accuracy.
Not
They
at
just
all.
were like, look at the special effects. Holy crap. That's what they cared about.
Yeah.
Look at the
Now
action. They've
everybody's
got
fact
swords.
checking, and we even have Neil deGrasse Tyson with the Titanic being like, that's not the accurate galaxy that Rose was looking. So we've gotten into a really weird space of people just rabbit holing on the internet to find some reason to give people shit for their projects. So, Dan, let it go. There are sharks in the Coliseum. It may or may not have happened. You weren't there. We can't fact check them. Let it go. It looked great on film.
That is facts. So, but also getting back to like the performance of both Joseph Quinn and his other counterpart playing the twins, I fucking loved it because I hated them so much, and they were so ridiculous.
That's fair.
And they were so over the top. And I feel like if they didn't play into it as much, like if they hadn't have overacted, I might not have hated them as much as I did. They gave me like the ick of like children, but quite frankly, was or was not most of these emperors and such that came into power so young, were they not like little fucking
I
tyrants?
mean, they do genuinely remind me of like spoiled YouTubers, of spoiled influencers, 100%. Yeah. This is David Dobrik and Mr. Beast. Like,
I mean, I was just like,
okay, the emperors are not that bad. All right, let's. They're not that bad. I mean,
just for comparison's sake,
they
I'm just
like
throwing
Rome
out
into a dark age, but they're not that bad. I mean,
I don't know.
comparatively.
It's giving young little 3-year-old tyrants that never had to feel responsibility for anything. And I loved it. So on that one, I have to disagree with you a little bit that either of their performances wasn't 100% because I actually was like, wow, is he like mental? Like, is he okay? Because he acted so well that I was like, there's no way he's normal.
Yeah. It's just in terms of the performance of the two, like I didn't mind that they were overacted because like I get the point and I get like the ideas and I thought it was well. It's just like when it was like when Hetchinger was trying to be like over the top and weird and crazy, it like his delivery felt so stilted and so wooden that it just like it feels like he didn't have confidence in his performance or it was poor direction. I don't know, but considering the fact I've seen Joseph Quinn in a bunch of other projects where he's done a really good job, I'm like, okay, this adds up with it.
But
I haven't seen
and I think
it's entirely possible he's better in other stuff.
And I think that's what threw me as well, because he's almost unrecognizable to me in this, where I'm like, what do I know him from? Because that's not the same actor as far as
I think that is also what makes him such a great actor.
And that's fair. Absolutely.
Yeah. But I also want to throw something else out there that I noticed that I don't think other people, if you are not acting, might have noticed. So there are certain parts of this movie that made me think that Ridley Scott purposely had people only do 1 or 2 takes, wouldn't let them stop no matter what, and shot from a multicam. And I say that because there are multiple scenes in this movie. There's one specific scene where Lucilla goes to sit down as she's talking to Denzel Washington's character, and she almost misses the chair.
I saw that. Yeah,
you saw that.
And then there's a scene with Denzel doing the same. There's a scene with Denzel doing the same. Yes.
It was so awkward for a second. And then I was like, okay, but like her character would have been really nervous anyway. So maybe, but I feel like that was either the first take or they didn't give him a second one.
Yeah.
Then there was another one with Denzel Washington with the head. So he goes to open the bag and it doesn't open all the way. And it seemed like a genuine, honest mistake. Like he went to go flick, like all of his movements are very like which is fine, but it was like obvious that it was an accident that it didn't open all the way, and then he went back in that scene. So I feel like Ridley Scott, and I don't know much about his directing style in the sense of like whether or not this was purposeful, if this was like a time constraint thing, but because it happened so many times, I feel like he chose to only give actors like 1 or 2 takes to do these scenes.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of film to shoot, so I completely understand if that's where he was coming from, because it was going to be a big project. I will say
more incredible, I think.
Yeah, and I will say though, especially after just seeing the first one for the very first time, I'm happy with how this one ended and how they kind of Ridley Scott has a real problem, in my opinion, with knowing how to end a film. Like the very first one, like these 2 guys died, and it's like, okay, they're dead, end of movie. Whereas this one, there was a little bit more, but same kind of thing. I was like, oh, so the movie's over now. All right, good job, Ridley. Like it was.
I actually
he doesn't really know how to like.
line.
He doesn't really know how to like tie it up with a bow at the end. You know what I mean? It just kind of falls off.
Yeah, I can kind of see
This one was a little better than the first, but still,
I will say though, sorry, just a quick tidbit. Do you think it should have ended like a couple minutes beforehand?
Yes.
I think it should have ended with them saying hi, and like that end of like him like bringing everybody together. I get why he did have that little ending. It was supposed to, bring everything full circle, very character driven. I get that, and I don't hate the ending. I just think it should have ended like 5 minutes before.
No, 100%.
Because it would have been a more bombastic ending to this very
end on a high
bombastic epic movie,
I mean, the last line for me, and I remember taking an English literature class, and the best thing I ever learned from that teacher, she was like, you can almost always cut the last line from your story and it'll make it a better one. You overthink the ending. And I feel like Ridley Scott could have learned from that, because that last scene really leaned into like my biggest issue with this movie was that it was really slow for the first 30 minutes, to the point where I was kind of like, I'm almost going to check my phone. Like, I'm like kind of bored. And I was like, oh shit, I really hope this is not how this movie. So the pacing of this movie, yes. And then it never slowed down after that. And I was in it. I
will say, I said, oh. For me, there was a bit of a lull in the second half of the second act. I think there was a little bit of repetitive nature, but it didn't like stop me from like, I was still intrigued. I still like I was like still paying attention. It didn't. Okay, I will say I'm the type of guy that like if I am at a very comfortable temperature in a place and I'm very comfortable in a chair, I will fall asleep. That's what happened when and I mentioned this backstage. I watched the original after a really long shift at work, and Gladiator, first Gladiator is an amazing movie. I thought it was fantastic, great movie. I was so tired from, it was like 10 o'clock at night, and my family we were all up late and we wanted to watch a movie. So we watched Gladiator for some reason, and I was watching it, and I'm really intrigued. I really want to pay attention, but I was like so comfortable that I was just like, and that's what I almost did in this one. I guess it's like I'm cursed with this one, but like don't knock that on the movie. That's on me. That's with my poor metabolism and poor sleep schedule. That's totally on me. So I just found that to be kind of funny. So like, the lull kind of
piecing. You're right.
But
like
even then,
if you're gonna keep it, like you got to keep it going. You got to keep it moving. And a lot of people
pacing was for the most part very, very good.
When people see a runtime like that, again, if we're kind of comparing to Wicked, for example, like Wicked was start to finish, you're in it, you're going. Everybody that left that theater kept saying, and I've heard it over and over again online, it didn't feel like it was over 2 hours long. Whereas Gladiator, there were definitely some lulls. There were definitely some parts where it's like, did we need that 5 minutes? Did it really need to be over 2 hours long? Like there are definitely instances like that in film where it's like, okay, you're doing too much and we don't need all of it and we need to trim the fat here. So I can totally see what you're saying about that, because like you said, yes, it was the same for the first one as well.
Yeah. But even then, I'm still curious about the extended. I still want to watch the Napoleon extended cut, but I'm curious about the extended
4-hour version of this. What the fuck?
Yeah, that's wild.
What?
That's wild.
I mean,
If
like,
it's not
I love him
dialogue,
for
what
Paul
is it? Is it just
Mescal,
fight
but
scenes? I don't know.
what?
That's wild.
I mean, Ridley Scott loves to make. I mean, ever since like Kingdom of Heaven, he's
I
like, I
mean,
want to
maybe
make sure to get
will
my
they get
director's
more
cuts
into
out.
Denzel's backstory by chance?
Oh,
Maybe that would
maybe.
make some sense, but like we've got it.
Yeah.
Like everything else is
And
pretty
speaking of
clear.
that, hold on, Dan, go down a little bit because it says Paul Mescal's miscast. Everyone's shitting on Paul Mescal in this movie. I don't get it. My
know.
friends don't get it. We're all like,
I
this
really
dude
enjoyed
is
him.
so good in this
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
I
He was
don't like
great.
everyone's shitting on him. Like, I
He
don't get it. I
also
don't
looks
see it.
so Roman, which I didn't even realize until we saw the movie. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, he literally looks like that. He literally
Right.
like what?
Meanwhile, they kept
What?
referring to oh my God, now I'm drawing Russell Crowe as the Spaniard, and I was like, that wouldn't fly in 2024. Like they would definitely say he was miscast if that's the character. Like that would have been a
Yeah, I
whole other can of
mean,
worms.
that's.
But
I mean, it could be
yeah,
worse. He could have been like wearing like brown face or something. So like,
I'm just saying to Angelina's point. Like
yeah.
I don't
It's like when
understand what
Sean
people's
Connery
criticism
played a
is.
Spanish guy in Highlander. It's like,
Sure, right. I'm saying I just don't understand where this criticism is coming from because he was
Yeah.
fine.
yeah,
So
I thought Paul Mescal was very good at this. I thought it was really, really good. I really liked the scene of him and Connie Nielsen like together as that relationship. I felt you felt the
See,
drama and the connection of those scenes,
that
in my personal opinion.
I had an issue with that relationship too, because initially she comes to him and he like hates her guts, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, I killed your husband. Now I love you and I miss you and I'm so sorry that we've been apart for all this. Like I forgive everything. Like it was, I don't
Maybe
know.
that's what's
It was a
explained in
little
the
too
director's cut.
rushed. Yeah, that the reunion was a little too rushed in
It
my
was a
opinion.
little
It's like,
rushed,
oh,
but
now you love her? Okay. Like
I felt that maybe there was some like emotional stuff there that could have been a little bit better, but I still thought it was good. I thought it was. I love Denzel Washington in this. I thought he was
it's not that
so
I didn't
good.
love him. It's just I've seen this character before from him.
I understand
that was
that.
how I felt. It's not that
I
I don't
liked.
love him. I think he's great.
I love the twists.
I
and
think there
turns
were
and up and
parts
down.
of the movie where he was a little too
Like he was the equalizer in Rome. I mean, truly. Like that, his
I
tone,
kind of see
his
it.
inflection, the way he was speaking, how he kind of put like a little like accent on it towards the end, a couple times. I was like, I've seen this character before. Not that I don't enjoy it, but this apparently is what we're doing now. I don't know.
Okay, 50-50, because I feel the motivations are different. I feel like
Oh, sure.
in Equalizer, he's clearly OCD. Like you can watch that, like as a person who has OCD, I'm like, oh, that motherfucker is OCD.
Sure. Yep.
And that goes into how he speaks, that's in his syntax, that's how he moves. It's very like distinct. This was very very, I don't even know what to describe this, like over the top with his movements, and it was just like his whole body was just like,
well, because his whole character is about it's just more and more power, just like the Caesars, just getting more and more power. How big can I get? How far can I spread my brand, my reach, whatever you want to call it? And he says that over and over again. He's interested in power. He's not interested in anything else. So I get that.
Yeah, so that was kind of, I just feel like it was a little too much. Like it was a little too much at times. But then there were certain choices that he made in line with that I was like,
yeah.
Well, but again, like
right.
you said with the emperors, was back in those times in Rome, anything goes. So, and he had even made that comment in character that sometimes he preferred men, and he was kind of back and forth. So I think if anything, and we know Denzel is seasoned. He really cares about period pieces. Like he has said he wants to do more Shakespearean plays and go back to his roots. I think, just to your point, Angelina, before, is he was kind of playing up to that Rome, anything goes kind of character.
Yeah. I also wish that that they didn't have another wife dying. Like I'm just like, It's hard to say because I know like a good like headline is like, oh, Gladiator 2 is just the first one again. I don't think that at all. I think like most of the movie is very different from the first one, but that first like 30 minutes is like so similar to the first that it's like, no, I swear after like the 30-minute mark it actually is its own movie, but it's just like his wife dying. It's different because she's not at like
That's what I mean,
because they don't have a kid.
She's in battle, but it's like
why? Like I get it, but why did he
I
have to
understand
have
there
the
was the
same
path for
storyline?
revenge that started it, but like you could have done something a little bit more different that like not made it feel like the first one. And is there anything like the CGI was kind of bad, not gonna lie.
For the animals,
it was not good. Like they needed some more polishing there. They needed to spend a couple more weeks on that one. But yeah, I thought I thought that this movie was like genuinely great. Like as I said, it's not perfect. I would give it like a solid like 8 out of 10. Like if
I agree.
give out a rating.
Yeah, no, it was enjoyable.
The first one's like a
phenomenal.
9.5.
I love
This was
the
like
action.
the action was great. Yes, the action was great. There was a little bit of shaky cam at times, but for the most part, it's very good.
But isn't that also Ridley Scott like sort of directing style? Because I kind of looked it up after the movie yesterday because I was so curious to know about like the one take scenario, but it said that he is like known for like his sort of like shaky style where he sort of like does these like big pans and then he'll like cut to the like people watching and then like that's how he tells the story, and he likes to use lens flares, and like all of that felt very Ridley Scott based on this movie.
Yeah. And that's a good point, Dan. I think it probably might have done even better if it did come out in the summertime. I agree with that, actually. Yeah.
But maybe they wanted to fill something. They wanted to fill something up this time of year because maybe they didn't have anything. I don't know. But whatever the decision was, I mean, it's good because now we have this Barbenheimer 2 Electric Boogaloo that's getting people back.
I almost wonder if Denzel had anything to
deserves
do with it, because a lot of his big films seem to come out around the holiday time. So I almost wonder if he said something about like, hey, if we're ready to go, have it come out around Thanksgiving, or they knew they were going to be up against Wicked. Who knows?
Also, quick question, Angelina. So a little bit of I guess kind of a personal question. So your boyfriend really wanted to see this movie and kind of got you to see it with him a little bit, even if you were interested, yet he's not going to go see Wicked with you. I don't think that's fair.
I agree.
I don't think that's fair. I think you should be like,
okay, to be fair on that one, I will say that, so we've talked about it before. I grew up in musical theater. He grew up like he played college football. Okay, like just very opposite.
I'm just curious, Dan.
No, it's fair. Just curious. So because we had that issue with Oppenheimer and Barbie as well. That's a very fair question.
So to be fair on that one, we have discussed that the first musical that he goes and sees is going to be one on Broadway. So he is totally happy to go with me. Next time we go to New York, we're going to go see a real show, but he's never really seen a musical. And he's only seen like one really bad, shitty, like movie musical. So he's like, I hate movies.
He saw like Bohemian Rhapsody or something. And he's like, no, let me see an actual real musical.
He's excited to go see like a real musical with me. So I'm fine with it. Do I think that Wicked would be his cup of tea? No, I don't. So like, I'm not going to press
That's fair. That's fair.
I mean?
I'm glad that we now have the, that we have an explanation. I'm just curious because it's like when it comes to that, I think things should be evenly balanced. But like now that I know, it's like, okay, I understand the inner machinations of stuff.
Well, and like I said last week, right now, Wicked is all about the diehard fans. So it's going to be all the women with taking their daughters, going out with their best friends. The men are going to go see Gladiator, and then next week it'll be Wicked will be kind of for more of the date nights or for for the families on holiday. they're both going to continue to do really well at the box office. But like I said, these are two completely different films, two completely different fan bases. So, I get where your boyfriend is coming from, but at the same time, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander, as far as I'm concerned.
I haven't heard that one in a long time. My goodness. But no, I'm actually really excited that like when we go to New York, we're gonna go see a real musical, and I'm gonna like, you know what I mean, like a real in person. I think there's like a magic to that that's harder.
What would be a good one though? That's we got to discuss that backstage because that's a good thing to now. I got my mind going a little bit, but Gladiator 2, it's one of the 6. I would say go see. I think both.
Absolutely go see it. I already told my mom you have to go see it immediately, ASAP. Go, shoot, gotta go. Keith thinks it's one of the best movies of our generation. That's what he said. So
I wouldn't say I would go that far, but I was genuinely surprised with how great this was. I didn't expect much. I got greatness, so I'm cool with that.
Yeah, well, I mean, with that said, guys, let us know in the comments what you thought about the movie. If you already saw it, if you didn't get a chance to see it, if you instead chose to go watch Wicked because your boyfriend does love musicals, then, let us know in the comments. Are you more excited about Gladiator 2 now, or are you it's just not your thing? It's not your brand of movie. Let us know in the comments. Hit the like button while you do. And of course, if you're new to the channel, we do movie reviews pretty much every week. So hit that subscribe button and then tickle the notification bell, so that way you know when we have a new episode going up, whether it's uploaded or whether we go live. We are live here 5 days a week with DCU Daily, and of course once a week with movie reviews on Also Curious times DCU Daily. Speaking of DCU Daily, we of course have to get to that next. Now, before we do, it's the holiday season. We've been doing this for the last couple of weeks. It's just, it's a good way to sort of just get us in the holiday mood. And so once more time, we're going to take a look back at a movie that is now celebrating its 20th anniversary, but it's still a holiday classic. And whether you grew up with it or not, it's got certain qualities to it that not every holiday movie does. And I personally still enjoy it whenever it comes on TV during the holiday season. It's, of course, the Polar Express. Let's take a look back at that for the love of movies. And then on the other end of that, we're going to come back to you with DCU Daily talking about Peacemaker Season 2 and so much more. So we'll see you on the other side.
Well, you coming?
The true spirit of Christmas lies in your heart.
All right. Well, that was the Polar Express. If you have not seen that, I don't know what you're doing. That's like one of the quintessential holiday movies that you got to watch every year on your holiday movie marathon. Now, of course, fuck the penguin. And with that, we start off a new episode of DCU Daily. We are back with lots of news from the world of DC and DC Studios and the DCU and any other Elseworld stories that might be told, such as the Matt Reeves, Bex, which still doesn't have a script for the new movie, but nonetheless, today we're here to talk about something a little bit different. Maybe Peacemaker Season 2. It looks like they might be done filming, and then there's a few other pieces of news that we got to talk about. Adele was recently talking about the Superman documentary. There's still other fuck the penguin stuff out there that we're gonna get into, but to do that and so much more, of course, as always, I've got with me John. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. A lot of stuff to be talked about. Maybe not a ton, but like a good amount of stuff that's worthy, exciting. Maybe not exciting. Maybe you just hate everything DC and you're just hate watching. Maybe you're a masochist. I don't know, but we'll see. Peacemaker Season 2, guys.
Absolutely. While you're at it, just hit that subscribe button and then click the bell. And then, of course, hit the like button because we do appreciate that. It helps us out with the YouTube algorithm gods. Now, the news on the screen right there, this happened over the weekend. So at the time of recording the show, it's not been very long since James Gunn posted this. And in the post, he said there's 1 day left. So, like, the crew was still hanging out in Georgia for a little, in Savannah, Georgia for a little bit longer after they wrapped. But let me read it out. James Gunn posted this on his threads. He said, And that's the Peacemaker Season 2 wrap on John Cena and Jennifer Holland, who both turned in wonderful performances this season as Christopher Smith and Amelia Harcourt. To top it off, shooting yesterday was one of the most fun days of shooting I have ever had, thanks to the incredible people of Savannah, Georgia, for making the Peacemaker crew stay here so special. So, and then he says 1 day left. I assume they just had like a day to sort of like relax, or maybe they were ahead of schedule, so they got one extra day in town before they all had to fly out. James Gunn, of course, still very much busy promoting Creature Commandos that's coming out in less than 2 weeks, and he still has to finish Superman, which is in post-production. And then, of course, now that Peacemaker is done filming, John, I'm sure James Gunn will be involved in post-production there as well. What are your thoughts on this news? Does this start to kind of like, give you a more of that sense of tangibility? We know they've been shooting this series now for pretty much like 3 or 4 months, I feel like, right? So it's been a while. It almost feels like a movie that they've been filming. There's like 8 episodes, but it's for HBO. It's a Max original, so it's a higher budgeted show. And certainly it looks like, no expense was spared. What are your thoughts on Peacemaker Season 2 now having wrapped? Are you looking forward to it? Does it give you any sense of anticipation? Tell me what you're thinking.
Well, I don't know about anticipation. I didn't love the first season. I thought it was fine. It wasn't like the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's probably, out of all the James Gunn things I've seen, it's probably the weakest of his, even though that doesn't really count because it's a team effort. It's not just James Gunn's Peacemaker, like if we're talking about a directorial sense, but it's probably my least favorite from him. It's not bad. It's just like okay. It's just a lot of the jokes don't land. I felt some of there was a bit of like dilly dallying, even though it was 8 episodes. It felt like there was filler there. I don't like how some of the characters were portrayed. In terms of like, I just felt it would have been more fun because apparently, according to I don't know if this was a rumor or it was confirmed, but John Cena originally wanted to play Peacemaker like a R. Lee Ermey-esque drill sergeant deadpan kind of character. And I think that would have been much funnier, but James Gunn wanted him to be more like douchey Captain America, which is fine, but I think the former had more potential. And I will say, I don't like how, like, I understand comic accuracy doesn't totally matter as long as you tell a good story, but I feel like making Vigilante this like weird, like incel, like autistic guy, like, don't get me wrong, he was good. Like Freddie Stroma did a great job, and I thought he was easily the best part of the show. I just wish he was more like the Punisher-esque character like he was in the comics. Like that's all I was hoping for. And then some of the jokes
maybe we'll get that side, in the second season. Like it's
maybe
possible.
I felt that the story could have been a lot better, and but overall it's still like a decent show. I hope that season 2 is maybe better now that Eagly is also one of the best parts of the show.
Yeah.
I just hope that maybe with the DCU they kind of double down on the stuff that worked and then get rid of the stuff that didn't. But yeah, I think it's like a decent show. It's not great, but yeah, I would say excited. I'm intrigued with a season 2. I'm curious of how if there is more than just everything but Justice League from season 1. Like if they are gonna do I think there would be a lot of comedy potential if like in terms of a broader sense, it's essentially the same outside of the Justice League thing. But I think it'd be really funny if there's like little tiny like tidbits that like eagle, pun intended, eyed viewers will like notice. Like maybe like just like a personality trait, or like maybe John Economos doesn't dye his beard in this universe, but John Cena still makes fun of it. And like, it's, or like something like that, just like little tidbits here and there where like, oh, that's interesting. That like, just to show like the inner, like, like differences, the smallest of differences that like a parallel world can make, and like kind of lead into that comedy aspect. I don't think they'll do that, but I think that would be really good for like a comedy sense. But I'm like cautiously optimistic about this. Like even if it's not that great, I'll still probably keep watching because I love John Cena. I think he's so funny. Like even if he's dealing with not great material, he is always good in something, and he always makes the most of it. And I do like the supporting cast. I just hope that like the comedy is maybe a little bit better, and maybe the story is a little bit better.
Yeah.
But I think season 2 will be for the very most a decently fun time.
Yeah.
Just like
No,
the
I
first
mean,
season.
yeah, I personally am looking forward to season 2 quite a lot because I want to see again what other character crossovers we get from the larger DCU, because this would be pretty much our first live action TV show in the DCU. So there's still a lot of firsts that we'll be covering by the time this show comes out, because you would have had Superman, so the first live action movie in the universe. You would have had a Creature Commandos, which is the first TV show, but also like the first animated TV show. So even though it's technically the second TV show, it also is kind of weird, like because it has a season that came before. So in a way, Peacemaker season 1 is where the DCU began, right? Like, or you can even go even further back than that, because it's sort of like it starts off with Peacemaker being revived and kind of like say, like he basically died at the end of the Suicide Squad, and where he starts off at the beginning of Peacemaker is a direct result of that. So you almost wonder like, hey, like if Peacemaker season 1 is canon, then maybe the Suicide Squad is also canon, kind of thing, or maybe parts of that are canon. Like and James Gunn has mentioned that they'll anything that they address will become canon. Anything that they don't address directly in the show isn't canon. So I'm sure those questions will be answered when the show is airing. But it's just great to see that we've got a wrap on season 2. Jennifer Holland and John Cena, 2 of the leads. Like especially John Cena, of course, it's his show. He's the namesake character Peacemaker. It's just good to see that finally they're done filming. They had wrapped the rest of the cast like a week ago, and James Gunn has been flying back and forth between post-production on Superman in LA and then going to Savannah, Georgia, and flying into Atlanta to do more filming on Peacemaker. He flew out for New York Comic Con and then flew back. I do wonder though, now that he's done with Peacemaker, I mean, I'm sure this is all schedule stuff, so I don't think they like finished this so early that he will change his plans, because he did say he won't be a CCXP because the scheduling conflicts and it just wouldn't work out timing wise.
Right. And
but
he
I'm
doesn't
just saying
need to be there.
I know.
I think
But I'm
Liz
just,
made a point of that. Like he
yeah.
doesn't need to be at every single, especially. I mean, no offense to the Brazilians. It's not like New York Comic Con or San Diego Comic Con. Those are the biggest conventions in the world.
Right.
It's CCXP is a much smaller one that's like not going to get a ton of attention. Just like some little tidbits, but like broadening their international spectrum in terms of like getting people excited and whatnot, which is good. Like I'm not saying, I don't want to downplay that at all. It's just like I think he's going to pay attention to the bigger conventions and stuff. Like he's not going to show up at like GalaxyCon Raleigh or anything like that.
Well, I know, but
like
here's the thing, dude. CCXP isn't just another convention. CCXP has become one of the biggest conventions. So I mean,
I understand that, but
I understand. But I also take your
point.
point. Exactly. I think it's more to do with the fact that his schedule is already so filled up. I'm sure, like, because he's the man in charge, or one of the 2 men in charge with Peter Safran, but especially more on the creative side, we are looking at everything that's already been announced or there's been rumored, or like, we're speculating, but there's probably a ton of other stuff that we have no idea about that is happening in the background that James Gunn also has to focus on, which also takes up his time. So, that would make sense that, just because he's done filming Peacemaker doesn't mean that all of a sudden he has a lot of free time. Like, for example, John, earlier this year, we were talking about this. I think you went on a whole rant, like, and you talked about how, like, why is there a need for another, like, alternate Superman when we're just getting, like, what's meant to be, like, a definitive take. So
yeah.
This is like a whole thread on Threads, as one would do so, like where James Gunn is basically asked about, is the Ta-Nehisi Coates and J.J. Abrams Superman movie still in development? Initially, he was asked, like, are those 2 people attached to the Superman Legacy, which was still called Superman Legacy at the time. It is no longer. But of course, James Gunn answered, like, well, why would they be involved? And then the follow-up question was, is that project itself still in development? To which James Gunn said, yes, it is. Now, he did say that towards the end of January. It's been like it's November now. It's been almost a whole year, and I do wonder, like, is this project still like happening? Like it kind of is in the list of those things like Constantine 2 and a couple of other projects where we have no idea just where they stand, or just, you know, if they will even be under the DC Studios umbrella. I hope they are. It seems like that's what James Gunn would want to be the case. But what are your thoughts on this? Do you think we're still gonna get that other Superman movie that Ta-Nehisi Coates and J.J. Abrams were developing? But James Gunn said it's still in the works. At least earlier in the year he did.
Yeah, I just I don't get it. Like, I don't fucking get this. Like, I just I feel like what it when it comes to something like this, I think it's not being made as like, I'm gonna tell a story that I want to tell. It feels more like I'm gonna do this because I can, and I want to like say something. Like, they're not doing it to like just like, oh, okay, this is a cool story to tell, let's tell it. It's just like, no, we're gonna like, it feels like very spite-y. It feels like it's like, oh, instead of like making a character or getting a character that's close to Superman who is black and using them, no, we're just gonna make Superman black, and it's just gonna and then it's just gonna piss a whole lot of people off. And then when the movie, when it could possibly be genuinely a bad movie, then it's like, oh, everybody's just racist, which is a shame. But like, I just, that's like the feeling I get now. It could be just like Ta-Nehisi Coates and J.J. Abrams are like, no, we just think that this is a good story to tell, and awesome, more power to them. But the way I feel is, it's not that. It's just like kind of like like just doing it because of like controversy and stuff like that. So I just think it's better suited. Like, you could just make an Icon movie, like oh, Icon isn't a, you know, household name. Well, guess what? Fucking make him a household name. How about that? Like, the reason Superman became a household name, he has 80 years of history behind him. Icon was made in the 90s. Fucking make him a household name. Like, make him just as popular as Superman. It's gonna take time, but do it instead of just like getting like sloppy seconds, because then I feel, and I have talked to many people that are like this when it comes to a different range of characters of different races, where they're like, I don't want a character that's sloppy seconds of a white character. I want my own character. Like, when Disney made Princess and the Frog, they didn't like go and make Cinderella black. They just made a black princess. And guess what? Tiana's fucking amazing.
Well,
we love
I mean,
Tiana. Like,
I get your point there. Right now, it's great. But I mean, in this case, we're getting a definitive Superman that's going to be part of the cinematic universe.
Right.
And at that point, I'm okay with the thing was, when this project was first announced, the J.J. Abrams Ta-Nehisi Coates Superman, we really had no idea what the heck was going on with the DCEU Superman, like with Henry Cavill, whether he was going to come back or not, or were they going to reboot it. Like, there were all kinds of rumors that this was going to be the new Superman, and, you know, all kinds of other recastings would happen, and the DCEU would go in a new direction. I think now that there is a Superman movie on the horizon that's clearly going to be like our main line, you know, Superman, I'm okay if they decide to go ahead and make like an Elseworlds story version, which now, again, it's also not 100% confirmed whether this is going to be a Kal-El version of Superman, right? Like, I feel like they were always kind of, I don't know, like iffy about that. Like, no, like Ta-Nehisi Coates and J.J. Abrams never quite confirmed which direction they're going.
It's never been confirmed, I don't think. I mean, somebody could tell us in the comments, like, hey, no, they confirmed it. But I think they are gonna make it a Kal-El story rather than a Val-Zod or Calvin Ellis story.
Right.
Which, again, feels pointless to me. But if you make it good, then it doesn't matter. But I don't have, like, I don't like J.J. Abrams. I don't think he's really made anything all that amazing. And then on top of the fact, I don't know Ta-Nehisi Coates. I've heard his runs on his comic books have been okay. I've heard his Black Panther run is pretty good, but I don't know, so I can't fully judge it. And, you know, there's also the, you know, very, you know, tiptoeing the very awkward conversation of race. So there's that as well. I don't know. Like, I mean, I would hope the movie is good. I just hope they want to tell a good story, but I have like skepticism. But If it's still on the horizon, if it's still gonna come out, then I'm off. Then and they just want to like, you know what, we're gonna just tell a good story. Cool. If they're not and it sucks, just don't call everybody racist. That's just own
I
your
think that
failures.
it's fair. Look, if the movie isn't good, the movie isn't good. We shouldn't we shouldn't pick out the wrong reasons for why we don't like something, right? Like some people will say that when their real reason is something different, or vice versa. But if the movie is not good, the movie is not good. That's all there is to it. Now, of course, this was James Gunn answering a question directly from a fan on Threads. Now he does that all the time, but he also addresses rumors, whether he confirms them or denies them. One other thing that he decided to do recently really was to kind of like give a reminder to everybody, like, hey, just remember the golden rule: don't believe anything regarding DC film and television unless you hear it from me, as in James Gunn. So what he shared here, of course, is no longer available because it seems like, I'm sure whoever originally posted it took it down as soon as they saw that James Gunn had tagged it and literally just said, "Don't believe this."
I like the GIF that the guy has down there. What does the GIF say?
Smells like bullshit.
Yeah, that's why
perfect,
when we always do a story like this, like we always say right before, take it with a grain of salt. Yeah, sure, we talk about it like it is true, but it's like we always keep saying, oh, it might not be true, probably not true. That's why when I was talking about the Green Lantern story, about like the rumored storyline, I was like, take it with a grain of salt. But now that this cast is getting confirmed, which lines up with the rumor, now I could say, okay, those rumors are probably confirmed. But like the Clayface thing with Mike Flanagan that we were talking about last week,
it's a rumor.
That's a rumor. That's probably total bullshit. But like, I hope it's true. I want it to be true because I got to defend my bald horror boy that I love so much because he makes amazing projects. But it's most likely bullshit. I hope it's true, but it's probably not. But that's like kind of the thing we do. Like we're not like, oh, this thing's gospel. This is 100%. It's all like, hell, Teen Titans technically wasn't confirmed by James Gunn.
No, it was a
Bane
Deadline
and
article.
Deathstroke wasn't.
Yep.
Dynamic Duo was, though. He confirmed that.
He could. Right? That was, I think, that he posted it first, and then the trades picked it up. But you're right. I mean, in the past, we have seen it many times. Like they'll announce things, or like trades will report on this, working on this movie. There's this happening. Like for example, what was the most recent one where Daniel Craig and Luca Guadagnino have been involved. Supposedly, they're circling a Sergeant Rock project, a movie most likely, and Daniel Craig would play the role of Sergeant Rock, and Luca Guadagnino, who worked most recently with Craig in Queer, which is coming out next week. They would be reteaming up essentially for a DC project, which we don't know if it would be a DCU or it would be an Elseworld story, but we keep saying, even though like all the big outlets are reporting on it, doesn't mean it's gonna happen. Negotiations fall apart. Sometimes multiple projects are in development, but only one makes it all the way to the
just some
pipeline.
asshole is making shit up on Twitter for clicks.
So, but I'm just saying, like, even if it shows up in a Deadline, Hollywood Reporter, Variety article, doesn't guarantee. And so ultimately, like that post said there, the golden rule is don't believe anything regarding DC film and television unless you hear it from James Gunn. And I think that's a good note for us to remember. Of course, it's fun to talk about the rumors and kind of like speculate. And so that's why we will, bring those up to you. But we will always kind of tell you like, hey, by the way, it's the rumor. Let's take it with a grain of salt. Now, John, before we finish up DC Daily, there's a couple of things that I wanted to kind of like walk through because it's just, I just came across these 2 bits of video, which are just like, just great reminders of all the amazing work that the DC brand has done this year. This one, the first one, is from Adele, and she was I forget which event this is, but it looks like it might be her residency in Vegas or maybe somewhere else. But she was just gushing over the Superman Christopher Reeve story documentary that is now soon coming to Max, but you can get it on digital. If you miss the theatrical run, of course, there's going to be a way for you to see it if you really want to. And it looks like Adele saw it. So this is what she had to say. We'll actually take a listen to this. And then I just want your reaction to, her opinion of the documentary that, of course, you have already seen and you love so much.
Him and his life, and it was absolutely spectacular, and it's probably one of my favourite documentaries I've ever seen, actually, and I couldn't recommend it enough. So just a parting recommendation before I leave. if you have sort of a couple of hours. It was so beautiful. I cried my eyes out, it made me smile, it was just so very, very beautiful. And all those Superman movies remind me of my nana and grandpa in Wales, because, back in the day when you could put the cassette in, look at me bigging him up about to basically say that we were doing copyright. You could put the VHS into you could record things off of TV. So we had like all 4 of them from when they would be on TV, and I got to watch them every time I'd go and visit them in Wales. So maybe it was a bit nostalgic for me as well, but it was absolutely brilliant and so beautiful, and he was just wonderful. Completely off topic as well, that was, but maybe you can download it for your flight home or something like that, so I'm gonna do.
Yeah, I mean, she said that she bawled her eyes out. She loved it. It was a wonderful,
Yeah,
amazing
I mean, that's
story.
how everyone was when watching it.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
yep.
It's great,
it's great
shit, my guy.
It's just again fun, and not just fun, but it's really nice to hear again. Adele is not a nobody. And I'm sure she's not the only celebrity who's gone and seen Superman, the Christopher Reeve story. But it's just again fun to come across people talking about it in such a positive light. It's won several awards already, and now it's going to be coming on streaming soon. I believe it's December 7th, was it? I forget what the exact date. It's either that or I might be confusing it with Creature Commandos' release date, but you can let us know, John. It is coming soon to streaming on Max. And if you don't have Max available where you live, then I'm sure there's another streaming service where you can find it, maybe a Netflix or an Amazon Prime Video. But it's just, it's great to see that, hey, the people are enjoying it. And
yes. Yeah. Except for the 2 or 3 assholes on Rotten Tomatoes that got to ruin everyone's day and take it down from 198. Screw those guys.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's always going to be a few of those people out there. It's December 7th, by the way, that it's launching on Max. So you can find it on December 7th, and then December 5th, Creature Commandos starts airing with 2 episodes in its first week. Now, of course, that's not all that we have to do. You do have another clip to get through today, John. But before we do, because I think it's relevant, I'm going to quickly remind you guys, fuck the Penguin. And I think it's timely because the clip that we're going to get through is just... I came across this, Alex, the voice guy, he does some fantastic work, and the other day I was watching a reel where he's like, over the course of 15 days, he walks out of the door, and each time he walks out of his door to go to work or wherever, he starts to sound more like the Penguin, starts having a gimp and stuff, dressing more like the Penguin, more of the accent. It's just his evolution into the Penguin as he keeps watching the show each and every week. And then now he just did this skit, which is just basically the Penguin being your bartender, and something about mixing the flavors, so which, oh god, it boils my blood. But let's take a look at this one.
Boys,
hi.
What did I get you?
Just a Bud Light for me.
All right. 1 Bud Latte coming right up. Trust me, it's better when you mix the flavors. Okay, you can thank me later.
Okay.
Take care.
Can you at least fill it up?
It's just silly as hell.
Oh my god, the Penguin is coming. Oh my god, wow. Oh, of course it's coming from my throat too. Holy crap. Oh god. Oh, Ron, thank you. I agree with you 100%. Just remember to, not that one.
Boys,
hi.
What did I get you?
Justice for Wade. Fight for justice.
All right.
Yes. And fuck the Penguin. But that's it for DC Daily today, guys. Thank you, Ron, for that comment. Of course, as always, hit that like button if you haven't already. And we are not done with the show yet. We still have to get on to our MCU Weekly side of things. So let's do that right now because, hey, there's lots of fun to be had. Oh, there we go, Liz. We're doing that thing again. All right. Oh, again. Back on me. I'm the important one here. I'm just focused on me. Hawkeye season 2. So on today's episode of MCU Weekly, we had to talk about what was one of maybe the least talked about series, and yet I think it turned out to be a pretty good show on Disney Plus from Marvel Studios, was Hawkeye. It was a Christmas show. I believe it aired at this point. I don't think it was last Christmas, was it? Or it might have been 2 Christmases ago. It's been a little while. But to me, it left an impression. Ultimately, the story doesn't necessarily play a big role in the larger MCU, but then again, nothing in Phase 4 or 5 did or do. So far, it seems like it's pretty random. But with that being said, I enjoyed the show. I had a fun time with it. It's one of those things where I didn't watch it weekly. I sort of like bagged up all the episodes and then binged it. And I did it in like December. So like, it was festive. It's snowing in the show. They show the ice rink in New York. It's like, all right, cool, cool, cool. It's hitting all the right notes for me. But, now it looks like Disney Plus is going to be getting another season's worth of Hawkeye. So to talk about that and so much more, of course, I've got with me Angelina and Liz. Liz, you are a big fan of Marvel, so that's why I want to get your opinion first about Hawkeye season 2. Are you looking forward to it? Did you enjoy the first season, or do you even know what the second season is going to be about? What would you want it to be about if you had to pick?
I mean, I did enjoy the first season. I did the same thing as you did. I waited for all of the episodes to come out, and just kind of watched it here and there. I'm shocked that there's gonna be a season 2, but at the same time, it almost makes me wonder if everything that happened with Jeremy Renner with his overall health, maybe that's just an easier schedule for him than a full-fledged blockbuster film. They did kind of wrap things up as far as like the Black Widow story, with her sister, with Florence Pugh's character. We kind of got Florence Pugh a little more embedded into the timeline through that. But I mean, and we got Echo out of it as well. But I mean, I'm looking forward to it. Of course, I'm going to see whatever they've got there. But just like you, I was surprised that they went ahead and did a season 2 anyway. But at the same time, Marvel's going to Marvel. Like, I didn't think, Loki 2 we got. They're going to keep the stuff going, and as long as these actors continue to come back for these projects, they're going to find something for them to do. So I'm hoping that it will probably come, just like you said, around Christmas time. Maybe it'll come around at the end of the year and hopefully kind of wrap everything up as far as what Marvel has coming out for 2025, and lead us into the next phase in 2026. So we'll see. Like I said, I'll see it. Surprised they're doing it. I don't know that I'm necessarily excited because I have no idea what we're gonna get. But it'll be nice to see Jeremy back as that character for sure.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that incident, like, it was almost life-threatening for a while. Like, we had no idea if he was gonna be able to, even have a career after that. But he's made a fantastic recovery. He's still doing the Mayor of Kingstown, like you mentioned. So now it looks like they want to do another, season of Hawkeye with him. And the first season, I just looked it up, was 2021. I thought it was like 2022. Holy cow, that's like even older than the Batman. I mean, and they got their shit together. I'm like, Matt Reeves, come on, man. Anyway, so I'm personally looking forward to it because, like I said, I enjoyed season 1 of Hawkeye. It's not the greatest thing since sliced bread, but it's not even the greatest Marvel Studios TV show on Disney Plus. Not even close, but it was enjoyable. It was like a fun, and I like that they did it as a holiday show.
Everything else that came out around that time, like that's when She-Hulk came out, which was terrible. And I was just like, you know what I mean? Like out of the ones that came out in that area, this is probably the best one.
Yeah, I've heard this is one of the better ones. Before I kind of swore off Marvel, I did consider watching this one. I mean, one, because I love Haley Steinfeld. She's one of my favorite actresses. But and Hawkeye deserved a little bit more love after, getting kind of screwed over a lot of times. But then I saw the ending with Kingpin, and I'm like, I have no desire to watch this now. But even then,
they spun a whole show out of that. So like,
I know there was Echo, but I wonder how they're gonna factor that into board again, because it's like, how are they gonna make this guy an actual threat again when he gets fucking one-shotted and like he goes down? It's like, all right, I don't know.
Well, I mean, we're gonna find out in March
We're gonna
next
find
year
out,
with
but
Daredevil Born Again. So
I'm just glad that they're actually continuing the tone from Daredevil, the Netflix show, rather than fucking She-Hulk of him like doing the walk of shame, and it's like, all right, like this is just fucking stupid. But we'll just make that, we'll just in following the tone of She-Hulk, we'll just strike that from the record. We'll just we'll just retcon that. It's I mean, they already struck her from the MCU banner on Disney Plus and replaced her with Deadpool, so like they're already kind of on their way to do that now.
Well, look, there were good. There were a couple of good episodes of She-Hulk. There were a lot of episodes which were very uneven. But as far as Hawkeye goes, just to kind of get into the actual details of what Daniel Rickman, suggested, another scoop inside. Trust me, bro. Like, take it with a grain of salt. basically. So it says here that Marvel Studios has a planned release timeframe for Hawkeye season 2 on Disney Plus, which they're saying it will take place in fall 2025, but the targeted, so they're gonna start filming it in fall 2025. So I guess more or less a year from now, and then it's gonna release in either 2026 or 2027, like late 2026, 2027, which would make it, according to the article, and they're not wrong, like 5 or 6 years from the first season of the show. That's even longer than most movie sequels take, right?
Yeah, that's a wild gap, and it almost, and hearing that, it makes me, now I feel like, okay, this storyline better be completely removed from the previous one. It better not be like like a continuation. They better say like 10 years later, or even 5 years later is fine, but I don't want to see anything remotely similar to the first season now at this point. You know what I mean? Like, because it's been such a long time. Nobody's going to go back and rewatch to prepare for this one. So give me something brand new. That's how I'm feeling about that.
I mean, I feel like you also really have to take into account like Haley Steinfeld's age and the age she was supposed to be playing in the first season.
Right.
Like, she's at that pivotal point where her career and the characters she can play and the age ranges she can play are going to have changed in that 5-year period. Like, maybe she can pull it off, maybe, but like at the very least, her character needs to have aged 5 years.
Yeah.
Because there's just no way that she can be. Wasn't she in high school or something when that came out? She was like a freshman or a sophomore in high school or something.
Well, and again, even after his accident, Jeremy himself is looking very different physically as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important point to make for sure.
Yeah. Now, of course, the first season did fairly well with the audiences, 92% on Rotten Tomatoes. Now it's a TV show, so we know that it's not the same as a Rotten Tomatoes rating for a movie, because there's fewer critics usually added up there to get you that rating number. It was definitely well received for the Disney Plus audiences that tuned in to watch it, and I thought, like I've been saying, it was fairly well done. Now, the director, Rice Thomas, has teased the possibility of a second season, so there's a quote here from him. And then rumors began to swirl earlier this year that they were looking to do a second season. Of course, they are putting out what they're calling the complete first season of the show on Blu-ray. So that's, again, another one of those things where you're like, the complete first season, not the complete series kind of thing. It's sort of like, when the Penguin releases, fuck the Penguin, on Blu-ray and then DVD next year, or like, Steelbook, we will all be wondering, like, what if it says the complete series or the complete first season. Like, it's always the thing. Now, the director, Rice Thomas, said, "I cannot speak to future plans in the tradition of secrecy. Again, the show is coming out. You never know how it's going to be received, and it has been amazing to see how warmly people have taken it and enjoyed it. And it's been great to see Haley's character embraced and sort of land so firmly in the MCU. Of course, she had that whole tease at the end with Miss Marvel showing up and trying to recruit her, doing her whole Nick Fury impression. I sincerely look forward to where the character goes next, and yes, I loved working on the streets of the MCU and would gladly enjoy doing it again." I think this show, if they do a second season, should tie closer to like the Defenders characters than it should to like the larger, like more cosmic side of the MCU, because that makes more sense. And as far as like you said, Angelina, the Young Avengers situation, like Haley Steinfeld, as well as Iman Vellani and all those other actors, they're gonna grow up fast. So like if they're planning on doing something like a Young Avengers or team, which they obviously teased at the end of Hawkeye,
I believe
they gotta move quick.
I saw a rumor, again, take it with a grain of salt. I don't think this was confirmed, that the Young Avengers thing they're planning has been renamed to Champions, Marvel Champions, I think, or just Champions. Because at this point, like Young Avengers, it just doesn't make sense anymore, since all of them are going to be grown by this point. So I did see a rumor about the name change, because it's obvious that they've been planning Young Avengers for a while now. I mean, they have the stuff with Agatha, with Billy Locke, they have Hawkeye, they have Miss Marvel, they have Ironheart, they have like all these characters that are, they have Hulk from She-Hulk, his son or whatever. That was fucking weird, but they have like all these characters, and so, and they wanted to try and go for Young Avengers, but they're probably going to all be like 30 once this thing starts filming. So I heard a rumor that it was called, that they renamed it to Champions, but
right. But I still think that's one of those projects which made more sense in the Bob Chapek era of quantity over quality. I just don't know how it kind of fits into the bigger picture of the MCU at this point. I mean, I'm sure they can come up with a reason and they can make it work, but I think like I'd rather have them sort of try to build upon what has been working rather than trying even more new things. I think people are tired of getting every new project in the MCU seems to be introducing new sets of characters and new teams. Let's kind of maybe get a few more sequels, which is usually we're always advocating for original stuff, but I'm like in a franchise like this, it's good to get some continuity. You don't want to have to worry about like learning about a new character in every movie. And again with the Hawkeye, what kind of surprises me is wasn't Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye retired in like Age of Ultron all the way back when, and then he's unretired and re-retired like 5 times. So like
he was retired in Age of Ultron. He was.
They keep pulling him back in till he's 90, Dan. Till he's 90.
It's like in the story world of the MCU, he's retired many a times. He was retired in Captain America.
He's like
Civil
the
War.
Brett Favre of superheroes.
Yeah, he was retired in Endgame.
They need him.
It's just well, hey, it's it's still a few years away if that is indeed the direction that we're going in. Oh,
that's crazy.
I'm cutting my face. But hey, let us know in the comments, guys, what you think. Are you looking forward to Hawkeye season 2? Is that a show that you did enjoy? Did you even watch it? Now that you know there's a season 2, are you gonna go back and watch season 1? Let us know in the comments. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and of course, tickle the notification bell so that you know when we go live with an episode of DCU Daily or Also Curious, where we do MCU Weekly, as we just did. Now we're gonna wrap up the show as we always like to do by looking ahead to the movie that is gonna be our movie of the week next week, and there is going to be a big one. Of course, we have to talk about, guys. Oh, we're doing that thing again. Let's go back to. We have to talk about Moana 2. Moana 2 is one of the most anticipated movies of the year. It is coming out in a few days' time, and depending on when you're watching this, it might already be out. But a lot of predictions out there that it might, not only break records, as in maybe like opening weekend records for the year, which recently Wicked sort of like really climbed up high on the list, but it could also become the highest grossing movie of the year and be very well received. I do personally have some reservations about it because they haven't lifted the review embargo yet. And we know that the review embargo for this movie lifts pretty much like the preview day on the Thursday that this movie will already be playing in theaters. So I do worry, does that mean that Disney's not very confident in this, or are they just, doing this for the sake of like, they do not want to be in a situation where they give away any kind of spoilers, or maybe there's other reasons, like who knows. But I wanted to get your thoughts, guys. Are you all looking forward to Moana 2? Did you watch the first one? There were so many songs that were iconic. People still sing them to this day. The Rock's back in this movie. They're bringing the original cast back. They're adding a couple of new members. Angelina, are you going to be looking forward to going to see this movie? Or if you haven't already seen Moana, the first one, are you going to watch that and then go see this? Like, what are your thoughts on the movie?
So it took me years to watch the first movie, but it was actually adorable because Pua from the movie, that was actually one of my puppy's first stuffed, like one of his first toys. So he would just run around with this giant Pua, like around for Moana. It was very funny, very cute. But, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of coming out a little late. I feel like they're kind of trying to do like the Frozen 2 thing, and I never watched Frozen 2. Do I think that...
Well, Frozen 2 was incredibly successful. It made a ton of money.
I just never watched it. So, I don't know. I am one of those people that like doesn't watch Disney movies until you like force me to, and then I love them. It's very weird. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna add to what you were saying, in the sense that there's a little bit of it's kind of weird, and yet like the timing is I'm sure maybe a coincidence that they're currently filming the live action Moana, like the first, and so recently like set photos came out, like, I think last week, where Dwayne Johnson's on set and he's like he's basically Maui, and you could tell like they're giving him the tattoos, and he's got like the big, I don't know if you call that a sword or a hook or whatever that is, his weapon basically. And so it's like it's interesting because like obviously there's a lot of word of mouth that gets generated because of that kind of behind the scenes coverage, and then the sequel to the animated movie is coming out at the same time. So it's just kind of interesting to me how that timing of that works out. But Liz, what are your thoughts on Moana 2? Is this something that is this a movie you're gonna have on your list to go to like a movie marathon to a theater near you, like, or are you just gonna go watch Wicked again?
No, I mean, again, as much as I loved Wicked, like I saw it, there's a part 2 coming out, so maybe I'll catch it again before part 2, but I don't need to see it again. Moana 2, I have absolutely no interest whatsoever. I will see it. It'll probably be at the very start or somewhere in the middle of one of my long movie marathon days in the theater, but I have no interest at all. They haven't advertised it worth a damn. They did give The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, another song, and I know that's what they're going to lean heavily on once it does get released.
Right.
But now seeing some of the live action behind the scenes, I'm not interested in seeing that film either. I think his hair looks terrible. I think the hook looks ridiculous.
The
So
skirt looks terrible too.
I mean, it's really them just trying to cash in on this franchise as much as humanly possible. It's pretty disgusting.
Before The Rock fully goes back to wrestling too.
Exactly, which he any day.
I don't know if he wants to
100%.
ever do that.
I don't know.
I mean, John, even
Has
your
he
feeling
said that
about
he
Red
wants to
One.
do that?
No, he's absolutely going back. He has to.
I mean, he's a
franchise
part owner.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a
Oh, in
part
WWE
owner.
now, right?
Yeah,
I'm sorry to cut
he's
people
too-
off.
going back to
But
save
he's a
that.
part
Yeah, he's
owner,
going back to
and like the
wrestling.
last like 5 or 6 movies of his have
Yeah.
fucking flopped.
Well,
Yeah.
again, to your point, John, you didn't care for him in Red One. I think honestly, right now, he's just picking up checks. That's what he's doing.
Yeah.
But again, the same can be said about Disney by putting this movie out and not advertising it worth a damn. They know it's coming
They're
out around
really
the holiday
not.
time.
It's
They're banking
weird.
on kids being off from school, so families are going to come in. But quite frankly, there are a lot of family-friendly films out and available right now
Right.
and still to be released by Christmas time. I don't think they're going to hit the numbers that they're thinking they're going to hit. It's
I
going
don't think
to
so
be a
either.
lot. I think they are still going to make bank because at the end of the day, it's a Disney movie and you've got those stands that will show up regardless. But
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
I'm not in any way excited for it. Like I said,
I'm
I'm
not
going to
interested.
see it for sure.
Yeah.
I hope that it's pleasantly surprising, but the first one didn't do much for me either, to be perfectly honest.
The
So
first one I feel was like good, but you forget about it like a couple weeks later.
it
Like
wasn't
I felt it was like
surprisingly
good, but it was
just good.
forgettable. It was
Yeah,
just kind
it
of
was okay.
forgettable.
It was just good. Right.
Like
I mean,
I
look, I think it
if
was cute. I think it did a lot to sort of show like all of this like Hawaiian lore.
the
and
Hawaiian, I was just gonna
Right.
say
I think it did a lot.
representation, the culture.
And I
I
think-
feel.
But you know what? We got that in the Fast and Furious movies too. So
How?
But I
Insane.
will say I legit forgot that this was coming out in 2024 until like a couple months back, like
'Cause
maybe
they
in like
haven't
August,
advertised it worth
because
a
they
damn.
haven't fucking advertised it a damn.
I mean,
I
I
don't think
will-
it's gonna
I've
make
seen, like,
130.
I haven't
Yeah.
even seen a
Yeah.
full trailer yet. I've seen
I-
a
Don't
teaser
you think
trailer
that
for
that's
it.
weird? But did they do the same thing for Frozen 2? Because I almost vaguely remember like not even realizing that a second Frozen.
No,
was coming out.
Frozen 2 was crazy also. Frozen 2 was like Wicked looked at Frozen 2 and was like, hold my beer. Like
I don't
no.
remember that. Like I don't remember the marketing for it very well, and I don't remember ever feeling like, oh yeah, I want to go see Frozen 2. Like I literally never went to go see it.
No, it was pretty wild. I do
But
remember
do you
that.
think that their apprehension in marketing the movie has to do more with like trying to save money because they think they are going to have a solid fan base due to the success of the first movie?
Here's what I think you're right in the sense that Disney knows there's a huge built-in fan base for this, because I think you guys might be forgetting and underselling just how not just viral, but how much of an absolute phenomenon the first Moana was. Like people were singing
Liz said
the
there's
song.
stands
No, I
as well.
honestly, I think this is a buffer between the first and then now the live
Yeah.
action. That's what I think. I think this is just kind of to continue to whet people's appetites and be like, oh, don't forget about this movie because we have the live action coming out. I think that's
Yeah.
what it is.
I mean, and to that end, I think like when you look at the predictions and the projections, it's $135 million would put it north of Wicked. That would be the third highest opening weekend of the year at the domestic box office, right behind Inside Out 2, and of course Deadpool and Wolverine, which were at number 1. Like 200 plus million. I don't think this gets there, but it is the holiday season. It is Thanksgiving week in the U.S., and so there's a lot of people going out, to see the movies. And as far as like comparisons or competition, when you look at Wicked or when you look at Gladiator 2, clearly those are very different movies than Moana 2 will be. The one thing that does concern me is that, again, I pointed it out before, you look at it, there's no, reviews out for this. And the review embargo literally lifts the day that, usually it starts previewing on Thursday. Now, of course, people, I think this will have a 5-day release window because it is a Thanksgiving holiday. So I think you can go see this on Wednesday into the Sunday. So they're gonna have a 5-day
I think even
weekend.
earlier, honestly, I've heard some people talking about trying to see it Monday, Tuesday. So I think
There might be like fan
whole
screenings.
They are releasing
Yeah.
it earlier than normal.
much
So
earlier.
they're releasing it on a Tuesday, which I think just has to do with a holiday, because they know that kids will have all of next week
Exactly.
off.
Right.
But I'm kind of like, interessante.
It just
that maybe that's why. Maybe they're waiting for like more genuine audience reviews to come in. Maybe because they know the critic reviews are going to be kind of bad.
Yeah, I that's the thing that worries me.
I did look up on quickly. I looked up on AMC, and it's starting on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So tomorrow, So it's definitely, that might be something, but it's still...
See, it's good.
Well, look, regardless of whether it makes all the money that it's projected to make or not, we're gonna see it and we're gonna talk about it, and then we'll be the judges, and I'm sure the people will vote with their dollars at the box office, because ultimately that's what counts in the end.
I don't
of the
think
day.
it's gonna be
So,
135. I think it might be 100, but maybe
I think
a
the
little bit less
range.
than that, but...
Right, the range is 125 to 135. In the article that I just had up, they clearly are quoting the top end of that range, so it could hit on the underside of that, and we'll see. I'm excited to see if there's any more iconic music from this, because Lin-Manuel Miranda was involved heavily in the soundtrack of the first movie. He's not really involved in this one, so that's one potentially huge difference, and that could make a big difference in the box office receipts. And because the first movie was so well received, in large part because of the music of the movie, I wonder if that if the music of the movie doesn't connect with the fans, maybe that will have a negative effect.
I did just actually hear on my radio show that I check out that they played a little clip of the new song from this film, and they actually did bring up Lin-Manuel, and they said, oh, if it sounds similar to him, it's because. So I don't know that he hasn't had any hand in it at all. I think he did maybe help out a little bit here and there. Because everybody's saying that he's involved in it, so I'm not sure how true that is. But again, I heard it. It's no, you're welcome. Okay. They're just trying to milk this cow for all they can, and it's really lame.
Yeah. By the way, while we're on the subject, I just looked up something which might be very interesting. Let me kind of put this up on screen real quick before we finish up. It's an interesting article, and I think this might be like kind of reinforcing our fears that the music is kind of the first reviews that are out are saying that his absence could be costly. Could be costly.
Just like, why wouldn't you bring him back?
I don't know.
Because even he knows it's lame. Even he knows it's a cash grab. He's got what motivation?
Then why the fuck did he do? Why is he doing Mufasa? Like, why is he doing that shitty cash grab? Like, hello?
Well, maybe it's because he's doing that one that he can't. I mean,
that's exactly what I'm saying.
Maybe,
I mean, that's probably why he didn't do this one, was because he was doing Mufasa, which makes no fucking sense, but whatever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so far it looks like some of this is just people's concerns, and then of course, like you said, people have had a chance to kind of preview the soundtrack, and so that might be.
Well, and again, they're not advertising it worth a damn. There's been no conversation about it. Like I said, I've seen a teaser trailer. I haven't seen a full-fledged trailer, and there have been major blockbusters in the theaters that would be perfect for them to debut things like that. It's just a one-off. It's just a one-off, and like I said, I'll see it. Hopefully, it's enjoyable, but I could give a crap about it, honestly.
Well, we'll talk about it on the next show and see how well it does, and whether it's well received or not. But until then, guys, thank you so much. Oh, we're gonna have to figure this out. Thank you so much for watching, and let us know in the comments if you are looking forward to watching Moana 2 in the movie theaters, and if you're gonna go see it maybe even more than once. A lot of people did on the first movie, so when you go to see the movie, just come back and tell us about it. Drop your comments down below, and then tune in for our review, and then we'll have a conversation. But in the meantime, hit the like button and hit the subscribe button, and as always, hit the notification bell so you know when we have a new video go up like this one, as well as of course when we are live with DCU Daily. So with that said, guys, I'm going to bring everybody on screen, and so that we can wrap up the show. It's been a fantastic show. I think we probably went a lot longer than we even usually do, but we had so much to get through. It's Glicked. That Glicked will do that to you. I have settled on that. I gave in.
Tons of stuff.
Yeah, DCU, the MCU. We talked about John Watts. Leaving Spider-Man to do Wolves. People make bad decisions. We talked about of course, Moana. Looking ahead to Moana 2. And as the holiday season goes on, we'll have so much more even beyond that. So we'll see you on the next episode of DCU Daily and Also Curious. Just remember to tune in. We are here 5 days a week. John and I, Liz, Angelina, thank you so much to everybody. Thank you so much to everybody in the comments, in the chat. Until next time, have a great day. Have a great week ahead. And
Happy
enjoy the holidays.
Thanksgiving, everybody.
And happy Thanksgiving.
Or wherever you are, happy holidays. If you're not in the U.S., then happy holidays.
Like, fuck all the non-Americans, right? I'm just kidding.
Even the Australians are saying happy Thanksgiving. So you know what? It's become worldwide. People just love to sit down to a feast.
I mean,
exactly.
Who doesn't?
Enjoy your turkey leg. We'll see you on the next episode of Oh So Curious Times DCU Daily.